Good afternoon. Okay, continuing to current affairs that we are discussing about environment or the topics in pollution, we have left at the topic number 10 at page number 34 with your booklet. The next topic is about contamination of uranium. Uranium has been reported recently with the groundwater supply and the major reason associated to this is the overexploitation lead towards a condition where alterations are seen majorly with the aquifers and the earth-based substances, they are getting oxidized over here, or those substances which can be readily available, they are now coming into the freshwater supply, and that's how the uranium has come down. The uranium comes down into freshwater supply when the critical use of the aquifers goes down, or nearly 80 to 85% of this aquifer is being utilized, or the underground water body has been utilized. And post that, if there is a continuous extraction of water from these water bodies also, then the oxidation or change in the nature of the binded forms of uranium, they have started to come up with the groundwater supply. That's what has been constantly seen, but despite there has been reports, uranium is still not been taken up as one of the substance which can be standardized for water pollution. There are many standard substances which are being taken up. The standard substances taken are sulfates, nitrates, lead, then we also go for fluorides, arsenic, cadmium. These are major substances for which the water quality standards have been defined, but uranium is, or the standards of uranium, what must be the ideal standard of it has not been defined by the Indian agencies. WHO though has maintained a particular level where nearly 30 milligrams per liter of the water has been taken up as a standard level beyond which uranium must not be present. Uranium, if it is present, majorly it can lead towards kidney disorders in humans, and if uranium is present in the body, then there are multiple therapies. The most common therapy is the chelation therapy, which has been spoken of. Chelation therapy uses tercon substances in treatment of excess amount of the uranium accumulation in the body. So, 2 or 3 basic type of questions that can be asked. Number 1, what are the types of pollutants in water? Just option is given, which of the following are the factors which are contaminating water, or are the water contaminating factors in India? Second thing, like a question we can write down, consider the following and state which of them, consider the following and state which of them are considered pollutants of water according to Indian standards. Pollutants of water according to Indian standards. Number 1, arsenic. Second, lead. Third, gold. Fourth, uranium. Fifth, cadmium. Which of the above is correct? The correct answer must be 1, 2 and 5 for this. Right. The second that can be asked is related to the type of underground water bodies. The type of underground water bodies that we can define, there are 3. Number 1, aquifers. Aquithards and aquiclods. Aquifers, they have a permeable boundary or they have an unconsolidated margin, which is an accumulation of water near ground or near surface. This is mostly recharged or water can be harvested in this or in these type of the water bodies. They may be near surfacial, they have unconsolidated margin, not marine. So such type of the water bodies, they are mostly used and much of the impact is also seen with these. Aquithards are those which have a consolidated boundary or a consolidated margin, which may be a rock, and they are near surfacial also. They are below aquifers also. Rocks in which water, the one which is associated with the surfacial water, can get accumulated. Aquiclods also have consolidated margins, hard margins rather, and these are deep seated. Water available with them is because of geological processes. Geological heat can also be one of the factors associated with them, and it is very tough to harness water from this, or these are taken to be those type of sources from which water cannot be harvested, right? So 3 of these sources, much of these are aquifers. That can also be one aspect of it or one question that can be asked. Another thing, that the type of substances which act as pollutant in the underground water, they are non-radioactive or they are radioactive or both. Such type of basic things they can also be asked, right? So uranium as such, it can be one of the pollutant which is seen or which has been reported, though not standardized, but is reported in the underground water supply, and that can be taken up as one pollutant. Issue number 12 also deals with the contamination of arsenic in paddy plants or the paddy fields. Arsenic as a pollutant, if we look up to the nature, it is a colorless pollutant which exists in or expressed in inorganic forms, a pollutant which is added into water supplies or added with the water resources because of hydraulic breakdown of the earth resources or hydraulic fracturing of the rocks, due to geological disturbances also. It is added as a guano from poultries. It is also added because of the plywood industry solvents. Metal smelting also involves certain processes, out of which arsenic is directly added as a pollutant. So arsenic pollution can be one of the major factors which causes problems. Also, the standards are being created by CPCB for the pollution of arsenic. Arsenic, if it is present or in the water supply and goes into the humans, it is responsible for blackfoot disease, which is related to thickening up of the skin in the lower limbs, and then change in color of the skin also. That becomes the blackfoot disease that is associated with arsenic. Arsenic accumulation is being seen in the rice fields. Specifically, this has been reported from West Bengal. And though eventually with time, the accumulation of arsenic, or as the plant grows, the resultant accumulation of arsenic in paddy decreases. But then too, the contamination of arsenic with the food grains can be seen, or with the rice can be seen in the human population. That has been reported. And how arsenic is coming down into the paddy field, that may be because of the industrial discharge, that may be because of the contaminated water, etc. Right. That can be one aspect of the question. The second aspect of the question can be related with the biomagnification of the pollutants. Biomagnification, those substances which are persistent, which do not break down, they accumulate over biological factors, or they accumulate over food chain. And as we move up to higher trophic levels in food chain, the resultant accumulation of any persistent substance increases over the food chain factors, and maximum accumulation is seen on the highest consumer or on the topmost consumer. So much amount of the impact can be seen on the humans. That is also one issue which has been discussed. Next, certain reports also says that there is an accumulation of heavy metals also. That is the issue number 13 if we look up to. Heavy metals, specifically they have came down. There are three major sources which have been spoken of. Sources of it can be important, or what are the sources of discharge of heavier metals? Sources can be because of industrial discharge. Heavy metals can come up because of thermoelectric power stations also. It has been stated that heavier metals can be added. Then mining and associated processes of smelting can also lead towards this. Also, the metal industries, the discharge from them, it can also add much amount of the metal or the heavier metal as a contaminant or as a pollutant, which has also been spoken of in this particular issue. Specifically, such substances, they can be DNA damaging substances also, which can also lead towards permanent changes in the human body. So, this has been spoken of in this particular issue, and much amount of it is being reported in Chhattisgarh. That has been spoken with this 13th issue. The 14th one deals with the persistent organic substances. or the pollutants persistent organic pollutant, specifically pesticides and insecticides used in agriculture, and a variety of other substances which we can see for control of accumulation of these substances or overuse of these substances. We have the Stockholm Convention, started with the Stockholm Conference 1972. Stockholm Convention, initially it has listed 12 pollutants or 12 chemical substances, including the initial substance list also included DDT like substances, which became the dirty dozen of the Stockholm Convention. Post 2001, the Stockholm Convention has amended the list of the pesticides which can be restricted for the use. It was under this that in 2011, endosulfan and other substances, they have been restricted to be used. Post that, the last amendments were also seen in the Stockholm Convention in 2013, where brominated flame retardant like substances, they have also been restricted to be used. Under the convention. This issue has been into news. So, three things. What is Stockholm Convention? This was in 1972 United Nations Convention for Human and Environment. Under this, as an output of it, the Stockholm Convention was brought down to cut down the persistent organic pollutants which are creating problems. Persistent organic substances ultimately goes towards, again, it exhibits biomagnification, and maximum amount of accumulation is seen over the topmost consumers. That's why such substances can be dangerous, and they have a dangerous impact on the human health. Accumulation of pesticides is leading towards disturbance in the food cycle, disturbance in hormonal cycle. They are DNA damaging also. These are substances reported to be carcinogenic. To the human population. That's why, apart from this, the impact of these is also seen over biodiversity, where birds, in the short exposure to it, we have seen impacts over birds, specifically water birds, ducks, they have shown impacts where DDT has an impact over their ovulation or formation of the eggs initially, right? So, such type of the substances, they are, or overuse or excess use of it, or those which are reported to be dangerous, they have been listed with Stockholm Convention and they are restricted to be used. That has also been into news. Next issue deals with an alliance to end plastic waste, issue number 15th. The alliance to end plastic waste is an alliance of private limited companies or companies in 30 countries nearly, and these companies, they have created an alliance to end the plastic waste material, where they are trying to reduce the amount of plastic which is used in their products. Also, they are trying to reduce the amount of accumulation of the plastic which is being created. That became the alliance to end plastic waste. In this alliance, Indian companies are also participating. Specifically, in India, the PNG has started initiatives. PNG India has taken up initiatives for this alliance. Overall, to provide financial aids also under this alliance, these companies will create a fund of nearly 1.5 billion US dollars, so that initiatives can be taken up to reduce the amount of plastic accumulation also to reduce the amount of plastic use with their products, or to create alternatives of the plastic is the basic utility of it. So it can be a straight line factual question if it is asked, what is meant by this? What is Alliance to End Plastic Waste, or AEPW if it is asked, and what is the basic utility? Governments are not the parties, only the companies are the parties, or the corporates are the parties to this right now. Fund 1.5 billion US dollars has been taken up, initial fund, reduce plastic use and to reduce waste also are the major objectives under this alliance which is created. Then also related to the plastic material or plastic substances, Taj Declaration. The name can be important. Much recently, Taj Declaration was in news. Why this declaration is being created? 4 options out of this. This is also to reduce plastic. Taj Declaration has been created to reduce the plastic accumulation, specifically in Agra and surrounding areas. For that, the Taj Declaration has been created. Specifically, if we look up to other question that can be related to this is related to the plastic waste and problems. There are 3 major types of plastic waste that we can grade: low density, high density plastic material or the waste material, and the thermosetters or the thermosets or the hard setting plastic material. These are 3 variety of the plastic waste. Low density do not have a commercial value, neither have a recyclable value, so they are accumulated at max. They get accumulated and they choke sewer lines, choke water supply. They are eaten up by the humans, so choke their digestive system also. The marine organisms are also entangled with these low density plastic waste. The high density plastic waste, they do have a recyclable value, so their recycling has pollution due to recycling can be one problem. And the thermosets, they are once produced and used. After they are used, they can't be recycled. These are 3 major problems. To come up with this, the plastic waste rules have came up in 2016, which is also amended in 2018. Can be a candidate for question this year, plastic and plastic waste, because of this also, right? The major things in plastic waste rules: number 1, the minimum density of the plastic must be 40 microns. Second thing, plastic must be, or the plastic waste rule, the ambit of the rule goes from urban areas to rural areas. Up to urban and rural, both are covered in this. Third thing, the use of the plastic also defined. The use of the plastic can be in the energy purposes and also in non-energy purposes. In the energy purposes, the plastic can be burned in a controlled condition to harvest energy also, or to reduce the waste. The non-energy purpose utilization of the plastic is seen with the roads as a filler material, also as an adjuvant with the to increase the durability of the roads in India. That has also been taken up. This gradation, energy and non-energy, is now amended with 2018 rules of the plastic management or the plastic waste management, has been the major circumference of this. So 3 variety of the questions. Number 1, the direct questions related to Alliance to End Plastic Waste or Taj Declaration. Second, the problems associated to this. Third, the rules or the guidelines which have been created. These 3 can be the major issues that can arise out of it. Next issue, if we look up to, then issue number 17 is we have got an approval for extraction of gas in the Trishna Wildlife Sanctuary. That has been into news. Two things can come up, that is related to the geography of Trishna Wildlife Sanctuary, and that is in Tripura. And second one is the approval has been given, or the clearance has been given by the National Board for Wildlife. So the National Board for Wildlife, which is set up by under the Wildlife Conservation and Protection Act, also helps in protection of the wildlife and for clearances of the initiatives that can be taken up in the biodiversity rich or the wildlife rich areas, right? These two things can arise out of this issue also. The initiatives have been taken up. Just go through with the Trishna Wildlife Sanctuary, certain facts of that has been mentioned. That can also be taken. That is a factual information for that. Right. The next thing that we can look up to is the Thoothukudi Sterilite Plant. The Thoothukudi Sterilite Plant, which is there in Tamil Nadu, has been is known for copper production in that particular area, and has also been known for much amount of the release of pollutants or the water pollutants, which can be hazardous materials or the hazardous pollutants in that particular area. The residents in that particular area, they have complained, they have filed a complaint against the hazards which have been directly released into the water supply. Then the state government has taken concern about it and then said that though the plant is not operational right now, or the mass urgence or the amount of problems which have been stated right now are not as acute which has been spoken. But out of this, the issues that can arise is the problems that can come up. We have seen heavier metals can be problems and their health hazards can be one aspect of it. And why this has been into news. Sterilite has been infamous for all these things. Sterilite was also infamous for that Odisha case also. Odisha mining and bauxite mining, that has also been responsible for that. So all these things, that is the core of this particular issue. Right. Then achieving energy efficiency, key to meeting lower emissions. This has been taken up as an initiative where the utilities of low energy electrical and electronic equipments have been stated. This issue deals with the initiatives that the Government of India has taken up for energy efficiency. The first one is the National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency, then LED scheme under Ujala, then Ujjwala also for energy efficiency of the villages, then other more initiatives have been taken up where the building codes for the greener buildings have been taken up. The school programs have also been taken up for the by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency for NCRT, and Ministry of Human Resources has also taken up initiatives where awareness can be created with school children for energy efficiency and low energy equipments also, right? That is about all the issues. So if a question arises out of it, a dimension of the question can be the initiatives that the Government of India has taken up for energy efficiency in the country. That can be the direct thing which can be traced out of it. Then the issue number 20th, that is academic Lomonosov. Academic Lomonosov is a floating nuclear plant or the nuclear power plant which is developed currently in Russia. And this floating nuclear power plant is important because it can be functional or it can be useful for providing electricity to remote inaccessible areas where the electricity supply has not been seen. Now these type of the nuclear power plants, they can be utilized. Such power plants, they are functional at enriched uranium, and such type of the power plants, they can be functional for 40 years. The initial timeline given is 40 years. They can be upgraded up to being functional for 50 years. Such type of a design that a particular nuclear power plant is being made available on a ship is a new of a kind in the world. That's why it is important, right? So academic Lomonosov is the nuclear power plant which can supply electricity to remote areas, which is based on the ship, is the issue about it, right? Shalom. So these are issues associated with environmental pollution or accumulation of the pollutants. Other issues are associated with climate change, page number 41 on the booklet. The major issues that currently we can see, the first issue, Earth at a risk of becoming irreversible hothouse. The study says that if the temperature goes beyond 2 degrees centigrade, or the average temperature of the surface of Earth goes beyond 2 degrees centigrade, or the adequate measures are not being taken up, then Earth may turn into a particular hot planet, or it would be irreversible to reduce the heat on Earth then, or if the amount of greenhouse gases keeps on increasing the way or at the rate it is increasing, or hardbound initiatives are not being taken up, then the complete planet may turn into a hot sphere. Also, the planet may turn into a net carbon source, or the biosphere may also turn into a net carbon source, which has been one of the study, right? And this is right now because of the increasing greenhouse gas content, the nature of land use change, increasing accumulation of pollutants in air, and the increasing temperature of surface as well as water body. Which is taken up right now. So the factors associated with warming can be those which can come out of this. Then second issue speaks about the major natural carbon sink may soon become a carbon source. The second issue also speaks about the peatlands, which is associated with the land use change and the warming methods which have been spoken of, right? The naturally peatlands are those, or peats are those where the fossilification is at the early stage or amount of carbon accumulation is seen. Now with the peatlands are the surfacial carbon or the carbon accumulations or coal-like substances which are present near surface. This peat is also source of energy in certain areas because it can help in heating, it can also help in providing hot local heating, etc. These peatlands, they also help in absorption of carbon dioxide. But now the nature of use of these peatlands is changing, and if the nature of use of these peatlands changes, those areas which were earlier thought to be carbon sink are those areas where infinite amount of carbon can be accumulated for infinite amount of time. These are carbon sink. These peatlands which were acting as carbon sink, their nature may change, and then they would start to act as carbon adding areas or carbon positive areas, because peat would also add carbon, and then those areas which are exposed or the carbon sink would be lost, and it would be seen that globally 5 to 10% of the changes can be seen because of such sinks if the land use change or there is a disturbance with the peatlands, right? So basic questions can arise out of these. Write down a question. Which of the following factors can be attributed? Which of the following factors can be attributed for being carbon positive in nature? Number 1, use of jatropha oil. Use of jatropha oil in aircraft engines. Second, blending up of ethanol. Blending up of ethanol in automobile fuel. Third, land use change of the peatlands. Land use change of the peatlands. Fourth, addition of charcoal in agricultural soil. Which of the above is incorrect? Which of the above is incorrect? 1 only, 1 and 2 only, 1, 2 and 3 only, 1, 2 and 4 only. One choice must be, which of the following is incorrect? Those which are not the carbon positive. The question asks about which of the following are carbon positive. So one of the option must be 3 and 4 only. The last option must be 3 and 4 only. 1 only, 1 and 2 only, 1, 2 and 3 only, 3 and 4 only. 3 and 4 does not act as the carbon positive. Addition of charcoal does not adds on to does not adds on to carbon in the atmosphere. 1 adds on to carbon. We have made it confusing actually, some way. See, practically leave the options. The first thing is also not carbon positive because the addition or burning up of Jatropha can be carbon neutral. It cannot be carbon positive because it subsides some amount of the emission which has been created in raising up of Jatropha. The second thing which is being spoken of is related to addition of bioethanol, same thing. Third thing, if peatlands, if there is a land use change of the peatlands, then obviously it can act as a carbon positive source. The fourth one, that is if charcoal is added, it increases the water retention tendency, and also is also spoken of that the organic rich substances may increase or the microflora of the soil may increase, which can then act as one of the factor which can increase carbon assimilation in the soil. So this can be carbon neutral, it cannot be carbon positive. So 1, 2 and 4 are carbon neutral, 3 is a carbon positive phenomena, right? Next thing that has been spoken of is related to the problems that we can see with the urban waste. Urban waste, which can be an accumulation of domestic biomass, can also be industrial biomass waste, would also include plastic and certain substances, would also include e-waste material, etc. Right. Now, urban waste is a larger challenge currently. Much amount of it, that is domestic waste, industrial biomass, etc., is being kept with the landfills. The first and foremost problem with these landfills is that there is continuous degradation or decomposition of the waste material over here, which lead towards production of methane from the landfill sites, also lead towards formation of leachate, which then pollutes the underground water resources and the nearby water bodies also. Methane, etc., lead towards addition of carbon or addition of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. In the landfills, the solid waste is also burnt, or fire of the landfills also adds on to carbon dioxide directly into the atmosphere. The domestic biomass or biomass in the urban areas constantly adds on to, or burning of this biomass in the urban areas constantly adds on to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The nearby areas of the urban area or the peripheral areas of the urban area, which may be agricultural areas, they are also burning the agricultural waste material or the agricultural biomass, that also leads on to the carbon substances. So in this way, the amount of carbon dioxide produced by the urban clusters is constantly increasing, which is one of the major problem. There could be multiple factors that can be taken up to reduce the urban waste and the carbon related problem. The first one is to change the nature of landfills to sanitary landfills, where landfills are not directly exposed to the surface or they are not directly present on the surface. There is a dugout or a dug which is being created below the surface in excavated areas where the substance can be filled and then covered, so that even if there is a decomposition, and there must be an inner lining of these landfills so that leachate does not leach down into the lower layers, methane does not arises out of it, and in these landfills biomethanation, that is formation of biomethane, composting of the organic matter can be driven, which can help in reducing the amount of problems from the urban waste. Second thing, production of bio-CNG, etc. That can be a resultant of biomethanation. Third thing, instead of burning the biomass, accumulating the biomass and using it in solid waste to energy initiatives also can help it. Also, recycling of the waste material can also help in reducing the amount of accumulation of the urban waste material, and if that can be reduced, the urban areas, which are now one of the major center for production of greenhouse gases, the problems that can be reduced. If there could be constant accumulation of the greenhouse gases, the way we can see with the urban areas, problems may also appear, or long-term problems can appear. The problems that appear because of these urban waste, the short-term problem, water resources are contaminated, the amount of heat and the heat wave tendency in the urban area, it would increase because the heating of the lower atmosphere would increase with amount of greenhouse gases, urban heat island formations, microclimatic alterations, of the urban areas. These all can come up as a short-term or a long-term problem associated with the accumulation of the urban waste material, right? So it not only hinders the soil factors, it disturbs the water factors, it disturbs the atmospheric factors also. That's why it can be a problematic source. So we need to cut down with various strategies that can be taken up, which is the core thing associated with this issue. That is, urban waste, they are one of the factors which can trigger global warming, right? The certain types of the questions that can arise, factors or the processes which are responsible to add global warming. Write down a question: which of the following processes are responsible to augment or enhance global warming tendencies? Number 1, burning of crop stubble. Second, over accumulation of the urban waste material. Third, incomplete combustion of biomass. Fourth, coolants used in refrigeration. Coolants used in refrigeration. Fifth, contrast agents used in imaging. Contrast agents used in imaging. Sixth, chemical mediators of electronic product manufacturing. Chemical mediators of electronic product manufacturing. Which of the above can be correct? 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. All of the above. All of them can be correct. The coolants, they are the perfluorocarbons or the hydrofluorocarbons, which are global warming agents. The burning of crop stubble leads up to addition of carbon dioxide, also addition of the black carbon into the atmosphere. Incomplete combustion of the fossil fuels adds up to volatile organic substances as well as brown carbon in the atmosphere, right, which is also a non-greenhouse type of global warming agent that can be seen. So all these factors, they can be responsible for the global warming currently. Then the state of the global climate currently, which has been taken up as a report in 2018. The state of the global climate, which has been created by the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services of World Meteorological Organization. The World Meteorological Organization, which is functional since 1950, was initially established at the International Meteorological Body in the year 1873, and from that post 1951 it has taken up a global scenario where all the meteorological processes, weather bound processes, the climate related phenomena, they can be seen and assessed by the World Meteorological Organization, and has been responsible for formation of many other organizations. World Meteorological Organization together with United Nations Environment Program was also one of the has also created one of the important scientific assessment agency, which is Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, then in 1980s and 1987 and 89, right. So initiatives have been taken up by World Meteorological Organization, and it constantly helps to understand what is the nature of the climatic condition. The report, the important points of it can be important. The first one, that it says that constantly 2015, 16, 17 and 18 have been much of the warmer years which have been seen or reported around, and this pattern of warmer years would continue in 2019 also, because the next report also says, the fifth report says that the next year would be an El Nino which could be seen, and with El Nino the rate of heat forming tendencies or alterations in the climatic conditions in the tropical and the subtropical conditions is seen. So the warmer years may increase because of the frequencies of El Nino. That is also seen. The second thing which it says, that the greenhouse gas content has not reduced. It is constantly increasing. We are not able to reduce, or neither we are able to create a particular state that we can look up to a neutral state, that whatever is the amount of greenhouse gas production has been kept at a constant rate. It has not been seen, rather it has been constantly increasing. So despite taking initiatives, we have not been able to cut down greenhouse gases. Second thing, the sea level is constantly rising, and there has been a constant rise from 2017 to 2019 constantly between 2 to 3 millimeters. Expected range of sea level rise was higher than 2 to 3 millimeters, was something which is said in the report, that you can mark. The fourth thing which is being spoken of, that the ocean heat content is increasing. And in fact, the ocean heat content has been seen, or the amount of heat in the oceans, or the increase in temperature of the oceans, was earlier seen up to a depth of 700 meters. Now, this heat content is expanding and it can be seen up to 2000 meters below the surface, which is one of the problematic thing, because if the oceans would heat at such a high rate, the overall latent heat of Earth may increase, and if the overall latent heat of earth may increase, then a long-term change can be seen in the evaporative and the hydrological cycle. So that can also be a problematic thing which can be seen. The ice sea is also well below the average, it is not increasing, and the glaciers are also retreating. These are the certain things which have been seen. These are certain things which we all understand as something which can be seen because of global warming, and it says that what you have understood as global warming agent, it is happening, right? So World Meteorological Organization has scientifically shown all these things. The next issue that we can look up to, issue number 5, is related with the El Nino and the climate change, and 2019 may be the hottest year yet, right? We are facing 15, 16, 17, 18, these were hotter, and constantly the heat is increasing. Now 19 would be much more hotter than 18, and this can be because of ENSO or the El Nino cyclic observations which are being seen. ENSO, El Nino and La Nina, these are majorly one cycle of the current. El Nino is the warmer pattern of that, La Nina is the colder pattern of that. El Nino, which originates from the Peru and Ecuador areas, specifically such problems can be seen, or much of the problem can be seen from El Nino in the Pacific, in the central and the southern Pacific and the western Pacific also, where if the warm current is being created, then there could be displacement of the air, and variabilities can be seen in such a way that the monsoon can deplete in major areas, right, onto the western side, that of the central Pacific. If we say, that means the eastern globe will face much amount of the problem. There would be depletion in the monsoon, the heat content may increase in all these areas, the amount of water available may decrease. All these can be the major factors or the problems which may be associated constantly, and it has been said that because of this El Nino, the extent of heat across the year, the amount of heat that or the hot days across the year, they would also increase, because the frequency of monsoon would decrease, or the frequency of rainfall would decrease. Then the hotter days in the year or in the across the calendar may increase. That has been taken up as the issue over here. So the issues associated with what is El Nino, what is ENSO, all these things practically you might have seen with the basics also. This year is the El Nino thing. Questions can come up, two variety of the question. One question related to El Nino, facts of El Nino, at least एक बार फिर से revise कर लेना अच्छे से, right? What is El Nino, how it has been created, where it is created, these facts at least you must revise thoroughly, because there could be a El Nino basic question in geography. May not be an environment, but that may be a geography based question. And second thing, what are the changes that appear when El Nino appears in any particular calendar year? Then the seventh issue that speaks about a level of rise in the sea or the oceans, or the sea level rise and the basic impacts of it. Four varieties of impacts they have been graded, though we have discussed this thing also earlier, right? Four varieties of the impacts if the sea level increases. The first impact, submergence of the land. The second impact, the flood-like conditions in low-lying area. Also in the lower stretches of the river basins. Submergence of biodiversity, corals and biodiversity can also be a problem. Fourth thing, thermal expansion of the water bodies. This thermal expansion of the water bodies would then lead towards 2-3 more problems. The first one, if there is a thermal expansion of the water bodies in the low-lying areas, freshwater body pollution or contamination. Because now water would be able to reach up to farther distances than expected. The second problem would be ablation of glaciers or ablation of the Arctic glaciers may be triggered, because now the hot water when expanded would be able to reach up to those patches where it was earlier not reaching up to, and hot water when it reaches to glaciers or seeps down into the layers of glaciers, it starts the breakdown of the glaciers. Much amount of the Iceland glacier or the Greenland glacier has ablated because of this factor also. So ablation or recession, breakdown of the glaciers, can also be seen because of this thermal expansion. Thermal expansion would trigger submergence or more marshes would be created. Now if these are created or this type of the things are seen, then obviously freshwater body, first thing. Second thing, ablation of the glaciers would again trigger global warming, because glaciers would then harbor methane, which would then again add up to the greenhouse gas content. Submergence or triggering in the submergence of the low-lying areas would again create marshes. These marshes or these marshy lands may again become methane producing areas, which would again add on to global warming. So if this also happens, a rise in the sea level can also be one factor which can lead towards triggered global warming. Apart from this, the overall other changes that we can see, the economic changes can appear with the marine economics that we can see related to fisheries, harboring substances from the marine biodiversity. All these things can also be problematic. The frequency of the disasters associated with oceans, that can also increase, right? So apart from this, the impacts of sea level rise can be many, which can be seen. Write down a question or basic question over here. Which of the following are the factors responsible for rise in the sea level? Number 1, increasing global mean temperature. Mean temperature. Second, ablation of glaciers. Third, tectonic changes like earthquakes. Which of the above is correct? Only 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, none. Rise in sea level can be because of all these three factors. During tsunamis, there is a rise in sea level, right? It is not exhibited that rise in sea level because of global warming only, right? Rise in sea level can be because of, there could be one more factor that can add on to this, the tidal interfaces or the tidal interferences which are created, or the gravitational interferences between Earth, Sun and the Moon. That is the formation of the low tides and the higher tides. If the higher tides are created, then also these can be factors which are responsible for rise in sea level. So simple question, but can be fatal for us, right? So take an account of that. Next thing, one more thing that we can look up to in the impact of the sea level rise. At page number 47 of your booklet, one of the point which is written is melting up of the Himalayas. Whether rise in the sea level can link up to melting up of the Himalayas, that can be taken up. The IPCC report of 2007 predicted that melting of the Himalayan ice caps and resulting rise in the sea level would may likely to increase the severity of flooding in short term during rainy seasons. Now this melting up of the ice would then again trigger the sea level rise, or the sea level rise would trigger the melting up of the ice. Are both interrelated? Which way they are interrelated? चलो एक चीज तो समझ में आती है, if the ice cap melts then sea level rises. If sea level rises then melting triggers thermal expansion. How can it lead? Can oceans reach up to Himalayas? Thermal expansion will have an impact, but thermal expansion will have an impact on the Arctic or the Antarctic ice caps. The alpine ice caps, how they are influenced or triggered? More precipitation. Hydrological cycle may disturb. Number one may be correct. Flooding in low-lying areas. What does it mean? Flooding in low-lying areas again will create, again would create marshes, right? So glaciers are melting, submergence is there, marshes are created, more marshy gas is created, more global warming, more breakdown of the alpine glaciers. In this way, this can also be linked, right? So both ways it can be linked. If glaciers melt, rise in sea level or submergence of the low-lying areas, marshy lands, more methane, more glacial breakdown, right? Maybe link is a long chain link, but there is a link with this, right? So at least that, if in some of the questions or in making certain basic questions, this point is being inserted. So don't get confused with this point also, right? Then a campaign which is the Green Good Deed campaign. The Green Good Deed campaign, which is started with the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and the overall purpose of this is to make people aware related to the climate change and global warming, and to initiate those practices which would be environment friendly practices with the people. So people oriented approach, first thing. Second thing, started with Ministry of Environment and Forest. Third thing, objective is awareness regarding climate change. Fourth thing, increasing those practices which may be eco-friendly or climate friendly is the basic objective of this Green Good Deed. Next, ninth, adapting better to climate change mitigation plan has also been in news. The currently, this is just a general issue. Currently, it has been said and has also been stated that IPCC predicts that the basic temperature rise must not be kept at 2 degrees centigrade, because it could be a problematic state where if 2 degrees centigrade is seen, then the loss of biodiversity would be more severe, loss of water resources would also be more severe, loss of the ice caps would also be more severe. So we must create a target that the global warming must be kept at 1.5 degrees centigrade, not at 2 degrees centigrade. This is taken up by the international organizations currently. Now, there are multiple factors which have been fostered by Government of India. The only things, the mitigation strategies that Government of India has taken up. We have discussed these things quite a number of times again and again. So these strategies that can be important. Then the 10th issue starts about how India is spearheading the climate solution. Again, in extension to that, the initiatives that the Government of India has taken, Ujjwala, National Solar Mission, National Action Plan for Climate Change, energy efficiency, waste to energy, all of these initiatives, and then cleaner fuel, that may be CNG, CBG, bio-CNG, all these initiatives have been taken up by Government of India. So these are certain policies which are being created against climate change. The next issue, that is the stratospheric barrier to curb warming. The stratospheric barrier to curb warming, it comes up as an initiative under geoengineering, which can be taken up as the conservation initiatives against climate change. Geoengineering tools. They can be anthropogenic impact, anthropogenic efforts, where we can cut down the factors which are responsible for climate change. The geoengineering tool speaks about 3 major initiatives that can be taken up. Number 1, to reduce solar insolation. Second, to reduce carbon dioxide. Third, to reduce methane. Fourth, also to change chlorofluorocarbon photochemistry. To reduce solar insolation, we need to increase albedo. Increase in albedo can be seen. One can be a long-term target or a very large project which can be propelled, though the feasibility of it has to be seen. That may be accumulation of extraterrestrial dust. Across the orbital spaces near Earth, that can be human, that can be anthropogenic or triggered through anthropogenic factors, though it does not look quite feasible. The feasible aspect of it can be accumulation of sulfur aerosols in upper areas of stratosphere or upper stretches of stratosphere, which can be done using stratospheric balloon. This is one aspect. These sulfur aerosols, they will help to increase the albedo. Rather, they would not, in fact, they will not have an impact on the outbound radiations, because they would be placed much above in the atmosphere. So they will not hinder the outbound radiations or those which are actually causing actually triggering the greenhouse effect. The third thing is spoken about cloud brightening or the marine cloud brightening. Cloud brightening is something where seawater or marine water can be used, and this can be sprinkled over darker clouds. To get them turned into brighter clouds. These brighter clouds will then help to enhance albedo. Apart from this, iron fertilization of oceans is also spoken. The iron fertilization of oceans means addition of iron sulfates in controlled condition in oceans. That will help to trigger phytoplanktons, now phytoplankton growth, if it is increased, it will also help to reduce carbon dioxide. Second thing, these phytoplanktons or variety of phytoplanktons, they can also help in formation of sulfur aerosols. Which can rise up to increase albedo. Reduction in CO2 is being spoken of by phytoplanktons or by formation of marine snow, which can act as a carbon sink. Increasing forestation, these are natural factors. Apart from this, entrapping carbon dioxide, in rock cracks or excavated areas, mines, where naturally carbon dioxide cycles can help to trap them, control them, or convert them into bicarbonates or carbonates. Marine snow is formation of when this carbon dioxide is taken up by the phytoplanktons. It helps reduce methane. The chlorofluorocarbon photochemistry can also be changed by using lasers. Laser-based initiatives can be taken which can help to break down chlorofluorocarbon which are accumulated in the upper troposphere. So that changes the photochemistry of chlorofluorocarbon. They will not be able to harvest nascent chlorine, which is one of the major factor which breaks down ozone, which increases insolation also, right? So all these factors, they can be taken up in geoengineering tool to reduce the amount of warming. They can be anthropogenic factors which are being taken up currently. That has been spoken of with this particular issue, that one issue is stratospheric barrier to curb down warming is this. Barriers can be created by sulfur aerosols. Next thing is recovery of the ozone layer, that is issue number 12. The recovery of the ozone layer has been stated.
How feasible is this cloud brightening?
Feasible, it is feasible. In local areas it is feasible. If they are higher, darker clouds, unless they are not the lower darker clouds. The upper clouds, they can be darker clouds also. So if brightening is seen for the upper clouds, then it is feasible. Brightening for the lower clouds is not feasible, or the tendency of it is also not quite possible for the lower clouds. For the upper tropospheric clouds, the brightening can be feasible and has been seen experimentally. Marine snow is when we grow phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons, they can be diatoms or dinoflagellates. Now diatoms and dinoflagellates, they have a structural ability that they accumulate carbonates with their cell wall or with their structure itself, right? So now carbon dioxide is taken, converted into carbonate, and when they will die, that carbonate would sink down to the ocean floor. Now the carbon dioxide which was present over there in the atmosphere is now indefinitely fixed in the oceans or the water bodies. So that is that when it settles down, that carbonate when it settles down, that is termed as marine snow, right? Next is recovery of the ozone layer. The ozone layer started to retreat, and this has been spoken of as of in this particular issue. This retreat is seen that now the factors which were triggering the breakdown of ozone layer are now slowly they are getting depleted in the atmosphere, and since the chlorofluorocarbons are now not used at a large, or they have been banned or they have been restricted all across the globe since 2006. So now the ozone layers would start to reform, or reaccumulation of the ozone can be seen in the stratosphere, and it is expected that by 2040 the reformation may start, and by 2080 we will have the ozone layer. But that has nothing to do with us, because by that time we will all be gone, right? So, but only thing is, three things can originate. One is related to the halogens or the chlorofluorocarbons. Chlorofluorocarbons act as the coolants for refrigeration, AC, for jet engines. They also act as the foaming agents for fire extinguishers specifically. Second thing, chlorofluorocarbons, they have a particular ability to break down ozone, because chlorofluorocarbon get accumulated in the polar areas, and in the polar areas they break down into chlorine or the nascent chlorine ions. These nascent chlorine ions then attack the ozone layer, form the oxychlorates. The oxychlorates then break down ozone, or triggers the chain reaction of breakdown of ozone that lead towards breakdown of ozone, that has triggered breakdown of ozone near the poles. Much amount of it was seen in the southern pole or in the Antarctica, lesser of it was seen in Arctic Circle, then lesser of it was seen in the tropical areas or near the equator, right? This accumulation was much more higher during the polar winters, and the breakdown was triggered during the polar spring. That's why they become the polar spring clouds of chlorine, or the stratospheric polar clouds which have broken down the ozone, right? Now these factors, they are constantly being brought down towards the Antarctic Circle, because the friction posed by the land was lesser near the southern circle. then the northern circle. So much amount of breakdown is seen in the southern circle or the southern pole or the Antarctic circle, right? This is second aspect of it. The third aspect of it, to cut down the use of ozone depleting substances, Montreal Protocol was brought down. Montreal Protocol 1989 to cut down ozone depleting substances. The timeline started from 1994, then 94, 96 and 2006 was the last timeline under Montreal Protocol to phase down variety of the chlorofluorocarbons. Post that, from chlorofluorocarbons, we have taken an alternative of hydrofluorocarbons and perfluorocarbons, which are also dangerous for the environmental conditions because they are highly global. They have a high tendency of global warming, or they are high radiative forcing agents, not radioactive, but radiative forcing agents. That's why they are to be prescribed to be removed right now from the globe, which has been taken up as Kigali amendment under the Montreal Protocol. All these things, they can be arranged one by one. Kigali agreement is something where the developed and the developing countries, they will phase out the use of perfluorocarbons, right? And later the hydrofluorocarbon alternatives also can be brought down. The perfluorocarbons initiated by 2018, the developed countries would cut down. China would start its removal by 2024. India would start its removal by 2028. China would finish its removal of the perfluorocarbons by 2036, and later with a capping by 2042. And India would remove all its uses of perfluorocarbons by 2048, which has been taken up as the timelines in Kigali amendments. These are the initiatives which are being recently taken up. They can be taken up, certain facts or important things under this: ozone depletion. So all the areas, ozone depletion, recovery, factors, how they are being controlled in one line. If all these facts are jumbled up, then question iske beyond to nahi ja sakta, right? Next thing, if we look up to issue number 13, that is associated with the atmospheric and climate research modeling observation system and services, which is termed as ACROSS. ACROSS is an initiative which is being taken up by Ministry of Earth Sciences. One thing that you can mark, and also this initiative is being taken up as a warning system for cyclones and tsunamis. Cyclone, storm, heat waves, thunderstorms, also the climatic factors which can arise during tsunamis or the upsurgence of tsunamis, all these things, right? So the name and utility can be important as the initiative. Next thing is the Climate Investment Fund, which is started by World Bank. The Climate Investment Fund is started by World Bank and other multiple multilateral development banks like the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, and a consortium of all these banks. These banks, they have created this Climate Investment Fund, which is divided into two parts. One is the Clean Technology Fund, that you can mark, Clean Technology Fund, and the second one is the Strategic Climate Fund. The Clean Technology Fund is to be created for introduction of cleaner technologies in developing countries or those countries which are in need currently. That would be between 2021 to 2025. And the Strategic Climate Fund will help to create long-term strategies in these areas or in these countries to generate climate resilience or climate change resilience also, right? So the last point in this that can be important, first thing, it is a collaborative effort, Climate Investment Fund. First part of it, that may be important. The third part of it, the CIF is composed of two things: Climate Technology Fund, Clean Technology Fund, and the Strategic Climate Fund. These two things that you can mark, right? Then the last issue is just a Google monitoring of the impacts on the activity of global ecosystem that has been started. Just a fact can arise out of it, that is how it has been started between a partnership of UNEP and Google, right? What all factors are being deteriorating the human activities are deteriorating the ecosystem, that has been reported with this. Shalom. Next thing, or the other variety of issues. Now we enter into those issues which are more factual, right, and more problematic also, because being factual, right, sometimes rarest of the rare facts are being asked with that, reports, organization. So quickly we can look up to reports and organizations. The first one of this, IPCC special report. Now the facts that can be important, or terms that can be important into this. The first term, SR15. In the first line itself you will find SR15 as a term that you can mark. SR15, or the special report related to keeping the climate at 1.5 degrees centigrade. Straight question. Much recently SR15 was into news. What is the basic utility of it? It is an IPCC report which indicates that the global warming must be kept at 1.5 degrees centigrade rather than 2 degrees centigrade. Right. Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC, if we look up to the other thing that can be important with this, because this has formulated the report, the basics of IPCC. IPCC started with 1989, started functioning with 1989, initiated by UNEP and World Meteorological Organization, is targeted towards scientific and technical assessment of the climatic variabilities which are seen. It has three working groups, 1, 2 and 3. All these working groups, they help in assessment of the climatic conditions, number one. Second, they help in formulating synthesis reports related to arising from different work groups, and which indicate long-term and short-term changes in the climatic factors, right? That is the basic utility of IPCC. Till date, IPCC has published reports starting from 1990 to 92. It has published the first report, then 96, 97 the second, 2003, 2 and 3 the third, 2007 and 8 the fourth, and 2014 the fifth. The next IPCC report is expected in 2019, and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is one major consortium of all the countries which is constantly working to reduce the amount of climate change which is appearing, or to reduce the amount of warming currently. It has inducted that this IPCC report would then be taken into account, or this SR15 report can also be brought into UNFCCC, and it would be brought down to all the parties of UNFCCC, and if accepted, then we will try to initiate those factors where we will try to cut down global warming at 1.5 degrees centigrade level. That would mean more fostered initiatives would be taken up by the countries, immediate reduction in the global emission of the greenhouse gases, immediate introduction of the clean energy initiatives which can be taken up, right? All these things can be seen as an outcome of this particular report which has been stated currently. But the globe currently, if we look up to after the Katowice summit of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in December 2018, is now partly divided in three different parties that we can look up to post this report also. One party which wants this report to be accepted, that climate change must be at 1.5 degrees centigrade. If climate change is at 1.5 degrees centigrade, that means immediately all the countries will require clean energy initiatives to be taken up. And if clean energy initiatives are being taken up, the fostering factors or the triggering factors would be for technology associated to the clean energy, right? First aspect. The second are those which have the traditional natural resources also. And the criticism to this particular report, that is keeping this at 1.5 degrees centigrade, is criticized by those which have the oil and natural gas, or majority of the oil. Majority of the oil is with three major countries: Russia, USA and UAE, also Iran, or that particular group of the countries, right? Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, in fact, right? All these are the oil producing countries. Now if immediately we are taking an initiative, that global warming would be 1.5 degrees centigrade. If we look up to the gross global warming, the factors which are actually acting onto global warming, or which are triggering global warming, or which are enhancing greenhouse gases, nearly 63 to 70% of these factors are because of the energy resources. These energy resources may be for electricity production or the energy resources which are utilized for automobiles also. So the oil coal based dependence of the energy is something which is being debated right now, that if we are dependent on oil and coal, we must immediately cut down the use of oil and coal, alter the oil and coal utility. That means the economy of all those which are the oil producing companies, that would be shattered, that would be damaged. So it has created one more pole in the global economy of those groups which are criticizing this particular report, that is the IPCC report. And the third group is that is created by the developing countries and the least developed countries. They are waiting for the technology to be transferred, or they are waiting for the adaptation fund to be given. So this has created a three-pole system right now. One which is actually working in reduction of the emission, which is the Annex 1 and the Annex 2 countries, which actually wants that developed country must progress, developed countries must reduce their emission, and technologies must be given to developing countries. Second is the group of developing countries, and third is now the emerging group, which is led by US and other countries, is the group of oil producing countries, right, which are criticizing this report, that is SR15 of IPCC, of keeping the increase in global mean temperature at 1.5 degrees centigrade, right. So because the immediate impact would be on the economy of these countries, and they have been facing problems with their economy for the last 10 years or so. If we look up to post that, there has been an increase in the economic factors of those countries which are burning much amount of the coal and producing greenhouse gases. India and China, their economy is flourishing, their growth rate is flourishing. The growth rate of US or these countries, they have gone at a record low time also, right. The growth rate of 2.4 is predicted by US, a growth rate of nearly 6 is predicted by China. India usse bhi aage hai, growth rate of 6.8 is predicted by, aur usse bhi aage bola hai, right. We can have all these. So when growth rate would increase, obviously the emission of greenhouse gases would also increase. So this will impact somehow the overall global economy, and that's how this polarization of the groups, organizations in international economy, they are creating problems, right. So overall, the IPCC, the facts out of it, the IPCC report, the name of the report, the basics of IPCC, they can be important, and then how, if we'll keep global warming at 1.5 degrees centigrade, how it will help. Then there are certain points which have been written with this. In the page number 53, first point, if we look up to, by 2100, global sea level rise would be 10 centimeter lower if the global warming is at 1.5 degrees centigrade. Coral reefs would be 17 to 90% destroyed. And if it is 2 degrees centigrade, 99% of them would be destroyed, right. So we would be able to save 20 to 30% of the corals also. Then limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade compared to 2 degrees centigrade would reduce challenging impacts on ecosystem, human health, well-being, that the 2 degree temperature increase would exacerbate extreme climate, rising sea level, and diminishing Arctic sea ice, coral bleaching, loss of ecosystem, and among other factors, right. So basic questions that can arise, what are the impacts of global warming? That remains as one of the underlying question of this. Next thing, the COP24, that was in Katowice this year, right, Poland, and this COP24 has seen many things also. Number one is the Paris Agreement and the assessments which are, or the commitments which are being created under Paris Agreement, the commitments created by the developed countries, developing countries under flexibility mechanism, joint implementation, clean development mechanism, and the commitments taken up by the Annex 1 countries of United Nations framework. And what are the Annex 1 countries? What are these Annex 1 countries? Annex 1 countries is a group of the countries which are the developed countries. Majority of the European countries and other group of the developed countries, they are kept at Annex 1. They have taken up a commitment time post 2012 initiatives, or the Qatar initiatives, that between 2013 to 2020 they would go through with Kyoto Protocol, that is a protocol of reducing greenhouse gases, and will try to cut down their emission levels at 80 to 85% of 1990 level and post that also they will additionally they have also committed that if possible they would be able to cut down their emissions below 1990 level also, right? So that has been committed by Annex 1 countries. Annex 2 are those parties which are group of developed countries only, but are members of OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, which have attributed to providing the Green Climate Fund, right? Then we have the non-annex countries, which are group of developing countries, which do not have a binding target of reducing emissions, but have taken up an initiative of going through clean development mechanism to reduce the gross emissions which is being seen. That is non-annex countries. Then we have a group of least developed countries, and we have a group of Annex B countries which are under negotiations, right? So post this, between 2016 to 2020, we are going through the second round of Kyoto currently, or the Kyoto commitments, which have taken up as an initiative which have been agreed post the Paris Agreement in 2015 and accepted and ratified by the parties in 2016, right? So this is in extension to that only. In Katowice, they are trying to look on to the initiatives that they have taken up, or how they can go through with the initiatives that have been agreed upon in Paris Agreement. So a rule book is being created, and according to that rule book, how they are functioning to reduce emissions, that has been first aspect of it. Second aspect of it, or the major achievements that we can take out of Katowice, number one, that can be a term, the Silesia Declaration, that you can mark. 50 countries, amongst the major initiatives or achievement, 50 countries have signed the Silesia Declaration. Silesia Declaration is an initiative to ensure just transition of the workforce, that is decent work and a good quality of the job is being targeted right now with Silesia Declaration. This has been taken up that if the quality of work would improve, the amount of, or the practices would improve, then the quality of work would also improve, then the eco-friendly practices would also improve. All these things have been taken into link. The second thing is, Government of Poland has taken up a Forest for Climate policy. Forest for Climate policy initiated by Government of Poland, that is for enhancing afforestation. Then the third thing in this, a high ambition coalition. That can also be one term which can be important. A high ambition coalition, which has been taken up by several countries including European Union, UK, Germany, France, Argentina, Mexico, and they have pledged to increase their targets. That is the targets that we have taken that they have taken at 2013. They are trying to increase their targets and reduce the greenhouse gas emissions also, right? Then Germany made euro 70 million contribution to adaptation fund. What is this adaptation fund? And what is Green Climate Fund? Under this? Funds given to developing countries to enhance their capabilities. Now, funds are coming from? Clean development mechanism, yes. See, practically for developing countries and to aid developing countries, we have two of these. One is Adaptation Fund, which is started in 2001. The trustee of this fund is World Bank. And it is the aid which is given to developing countries for clean practices, it comes from 2% of the CDM initiatives or 2% of the CDM profits which are gained. Plus there could be other sources of the fund. There are multiple parties apart from World Bank, Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, then groups, the regional groups, etc. They can help in funding this thing, right? Adaptation fund. Second thing is the Green Climate Fund. They also have, under the adaptation fund, they also have multilateral agencies or the multi-country agency or the multi-initiative agencies. For the multi-initiative agencies in India, we have NABARD as the nodal agency, which is looking on to the initiatives which can be taken up for the implementation of the adaptation fund initiatives. So for India, NABARD is the implementing authority or agency. Green Climate Fund, the concept started in 2009, accepted and formed in 2013 and brought into force post 2016, right? Rather brought into force by the Paris Agreement itself and started its functioning from 2016, is a temporary fund right now. World Bank again is trustee, but is just a temporary trustee for this. It has created a Green Climate Fund board, which has seen 3 presidents in the past 3 years. They are trying to create arrangements or negotiations. It would be dependent on negotiations between developed countries and developing countries. Where the Annex B parties, or rather the Annex 2 parties of UNFCCC, will help to provide technology transfer worth $100 billion every year. This has been seen, and this would be given to developing countries and their group. Green Climate Fund was accepted to be given in the Paris Agreement 15, and then post that it was expected that from 2018 the Green Climate Fund, between 2018 to 2024, the first installment of it must have been given, and post that the assessment would be done, and then every year it would be given, or the Green Climate Fund would then be given every year. So these are 2 different funds which are to be provided. They are 2 different nature of the funds which are to be provided. So adaptation fund is being taken up currently in this report. That can be important. And then Germany has given funds to adaptation funds also. Germany has given it to the Green Climate Fund also. Norway has also given to Green Climate Fund. And then the US has also committed to this Green Climate Fund under this. Right, then there are certain companies like the Merck's, which is the largest shipping company in the globe. It has committed to completely eradicating emissions by 2050. These are the certain outputs, right? So the things that can be important is the Silesia Dialogue or the Silesia Declaration. That can be one thing. The Forest for Climate Policy, that can also be one thing. The Forest for Climate Policy is an initiative taken up by the government of Poland and for afforestation. The High Ambition Coalition. High Ambition Coalition is the coalition of all those countries which have taken up a pledge of increasing their commitments toward decrease in the greenhouse gases, adaptation fund, green climate funds. These terms can be important, that we can take out of Katowice, right, or the COP24 that we have seen this year. Then the India submits its second biennial report to United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, which is in line with its intended nationally determined contributions, which are to be submitted to UNFCCC post the initiatives taken under the Paris Agreement of 2015 and agreed in 2016. India has submitted its second biennial report, that is report to be submitted in every 2 years, and it has stated that its emission has been, or the gross emission that has been seen up to 2014 was the net annual emission. That third point can be important. The net annual emission after including land use change was 2.306 billion. The actual emission in 2014 was 2.607 billion. Right. So forestry has led towards decrease in the net emission of it. And then the majority of the emission in India, 73% of it is coming from energy sector, that you can mark in this. 8% of it is coming from industrial processes and product use. 16% of it is coming from agriculture, and 3% coming from the waste sector. These are certain things which can be taken also, right? This can be taken for PT facts also, this can be taken for writing answers for mains also, that majority of it comes from this, that you can arrange. So these things they have came up. Why they are submitting? They are submitting it with under the intended nationally determined contributions. The major targets under INDCs for India is that by 2030 we would be able to create 2.5 to 3 million tons of the billion ton carbon equivalent of the carbon sink in the country by increasing the forest area. Also we have committed of producing 1.75 gigawatts of the electricity from the renewable energy by 2030. That the major initiatives would be from solar energy and the wind power development, right? These are the major commitments which have been created, and post that the Paris Agreement has stated that post 2010 what are the initiatives that the government has taken, they must be submitted or must be recorded. And first report was in 2016, that was the between 2010 to 12. Now the second report is between 12 to 14, and this is the second biennial report that we have given in 2018. Right, the next report would be given in 2020, that would be between 2014 to 16. Post that the assessment would be done. In 2020 only the assessment of Kyoto ranges, that is what you have taken between 16 to 20 for the second binding period of the Kyoto Protocol would be assessed in 2020 to 2021, and then assessment would be seen for 2024, right? So this would be the series of the things that would be done. Then the fourth thing that has been issued in this is basic ministerial meeting in climate change or on climate change. Basic, or a group of Brazil, India, South Africa and China, except Russia, right, of the BRICS. This was created, formed in 2009. इसमें एक और ग्रुप बना था, वो था इब्सा, राइट, वो 2003 में बना था इकोनॉमिक कॉपरेशन के लिए. उसके बाद ब्रिक्स बना, उसके बाद ब्रिक्स बना, इब्सा बना और फिर बेसिक बना. द मेजर ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ द बेसिक इज टू क्रिएट इनिशिएटिव्स फॉर क्लाइमेट related, we can say declarations, discussions, any kind of the declaration is to be taken up, or any kind of a dialogue is to be taken up between developed and the developing countries. For all those negotiations or climatic negotiations, this basic group has been created. This basic group has been able to put a pressure to get green climate fund, has constantly been negotiating for green climate fund. In this issue, it has said that in the recent summit in New Delhi, they have again pledged to pressurize the developing country, developed country to provide green fund, right? That has been one thing that has been taken up, so that it must be provided as $100 billion US fund every year. Not that is that you have committed, okay, between 18 to 24 we will give you $100 billion US, and what will happen post that we don't know. So there the needs of developing countries are larger. and the amount of problems that the developed countries have created are also larger. So this must be subjected to the amount of technology transfer which is seen. That has been accepted in this. The next meeting is to be held in Brazil, that is in 2019. Right. These two things in this. Then a global cooling innovation summit which is held in Delhi. This global cooling innovation summit is something where the new technologies can be developed for air conditioning and air cooling. Right. Apart from ACs, what new technologies can be taken up for air cooling is the initiative which is taken up under this Global Cooling Innovation Summit. Two things in this is being initiated by Department of Science and Technology along with the Rocky Mountain Institute, the Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy, AEEE, and the Conservation X Labs and CEPT University. All these, they have these 5 organizations, and they have created a global cooling prize. They have launched a global cooling prize. Right. It is an innovation competition, that is Global Cooling Prize, with which wide global technologies and participation that aims to achieve dramatic breakouts in cooling technologies. Right, how new technologies would be developed. For that, this summit was held. Then we have the Sustainable Biofuel Innovation Challenge, SBIC. That is also there by Department of Biotechnology and Biofuture platform. Facts you can mark: DBT, Biofuture platform was involved, and the third point into this is understanding the bioeconomy of the biofuel and participation, creating more policies, creating more awareness is the basic idea with this. That is Sustainable Biofuel Innovation Challenge. Next one, the term can be important. That is the SUVA Expert Dialogue, SUVA Expert Dialogue. The SUVA Expert Dialogue is for loss and damage. Loss and damage, or the concept of it, started in 2012, or the basic language of loss and damage associated to climate change was started in 2012 with the Doha Accords, and the post that the basic language of it was framed, or the exact idea of loss and damage was created in the Warsaw Summit. Right, and that became the Warsaw Initiative, or the Warsaw Principle for Loss and Damage. The Warsaw Principle for Loss and Damage spoken about initiatives that can be taken up related to any kind of the damage that can appear because of the climate change. These damages can be because of disasters which may appear, and these disasters may be cyclone, or the frequency of cyclones would increase, loss of the hydrological cycle, drought-like condition, flood-like condition in certain areas because of melting up of the alpine glaciers. Right, all these loss and damage which is appearing constantly because of the environmental change. What must be the protection? What must be the safety valve? What must be a mechanism to control these? That has been taken up under the Warsaw Loss and Damage Principle. And that now the SUVA Expert Dialogue on Loss and Damage is also being created. It is under COP. The basic thing, the outcomes can be important. The current mechanism and financial instruments set up under the aegis of UNFCCC were inadequate, and now the immediate initiatives are required. Aspects of risk creation, finance have to emerge, and then the forecast based compensations must be given, and the gaps in current loss and damage mechanism must be taken. These are 4 or 5 things which have been discussed related to the SUVA dialogue. The term can be important. What is this SUVA dialogue? Right, that can be important. Then the State of Forest Report in 2017. The State of Forest Report, now in 2017 the State of Forest Report, who has published this forest report? The Forest Survey of India. How it publishes, or when it publishes the forest report? Every 2 years it publishes a State of Forest Report. The last report was in 17. The last report, or the last State of Forest Report, says that the forest area in the country is increasing, and nearly 24.4% of the total land is under forest. That fact you can mark with this. India is 8th in the top list of 10 nations reporting the greatest annual net gain in forest also, right? It is 8th. That is the best thing that we have done with the environmental condition, because we look up to Environment Protection Index. We are amongst the worst environmental condition countries, right? Second thing, the forest cover has increased by 1% between 15 to 17, and the very dense forest area has increased by 1.36%. Right? These two things, they can be taken or they can be remembered. Right? Next thing, if we look up to then the gross area under forestation currently is moderately dense forest, the table that you can look up to. Now, these small statement made out of it. The maximum amount of forested area in India is very dense forest, true or false? It can be a statement in a simple question. Consider following related to forestation. So at least these facts, they can be remembered, right? The maximum amount of forest in the country is moderately dense forest, and the second largest is the open forest. That you can take out of it. Then the maximum increase is seen in Andhra Pradesh, second in Karnataka, third in Kerala, fourth in Odisha, and fifth in Telangana. The maximum decrease in forest has been seen in Mizoram. Maximum in Andhra increase, maximum decrease is in Mizoram. Of the union territories and island states also, if we look up to, then of the maximum states or all these states, the maximum forest is available with Madhya Pradesh, and second is with the Arunachal Pradesh. But the density of the forest, if we look up to, the dense forest, maximum dense forest is available with Arunachal Pradesh, right? Maximum forest with Madhya Pradesh, maximum dense forest with Arunachal Pradesh. And amongst the union territories, Lakshadweep has the maximum area under forest cover, right? That can also be important. Then looking up to mangroves also, mangroves have increased their forestation. There has been an increase in mangrove forestation. So just a statement, if it has been written that mangroves in India are decreasing as according to the forest survey reports, no, they are increasing, right? They are not decreasing. There has been an increase of 181 square kilometer. That fact you can mark. Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh, the maximum mangrove cover has increased, or the maximum gainers in mangrove cover. First one is Maharashtra, second is Andhra Pradesh, third one is Gujarat. Andhra Pradesh has been maximum gainer in forest and second highest gainer in the mangrove forest. Then the water bodies, there has been an increase of the water bodies inside forest that we can look up to, right? The carbon sink, at the present assessment of the total carbon stock, the second point in carbon sink is estimated to be 7082 million tons. That is nearly 0.7 billion tons of it is present. We have to increase it to 2.5 billion tons of the carbon sink or the gross carbon equivalent that we have to take up to. There has been an increase of 38 million tons currently. We have to keep on increasing this carbon sink. So carbon sink is also increasing. All these things, they have been certain important aspects of this, the State of Forest Report of 2017. Then the 9th report that says that has been published in the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine, and this is a parliamentary report on the Western Ghat, or a parliamentary panel report on Western Ghat. This states that the forest in the Western Ghat is constantly decreasing, and rather between 1973 to 2016, if we assess, then forest has decreased by 30%. From being 85% forest, it has decreased to 55% forest. That can be important. Factors responsible for this, three major factors have been spoken of. Number one is the dam built on Kali River, that is construction of the dams in the Western Ghats. Second, because of the Kaiga nuclear plant, and the third, because of the Dandeli paper mill in these areas have been responsible. That you can mark, right? The evergreen forest have got down from 62% to 35%. That can also be important. Certain facts out of it, they can be seen. So currently we say the Western Ghats, or the forest in the Western Ghats, they are decreasing. Yes, they are decreasing because of the anthropogenic impact. The first factor is construction of the dams. The second factor is nuclear plant, the third factor can be the paper mill or the shifting cultivation associated because of this, right? So these factors can come out of it. Then the 10th issue, that is the 13th Convention of Parties of the Bonn Convention. We have discussed this thing earlier also, yesterday. That would be held in 2020 in Gujarat. The mascot would be the Great Indian Bison, right? That would be the 13th conference of the Bonn Convention or Convention on Migratory Species. Then 11th report, that is the World's Birds Report. The World's Birds Report is being created by BirdLife International. First thing, issues associated to BirdLife International. It is a global partner of IUCN and helps in conservation of the birds, specifically by listing them also. It also helps in listing the birds which are threatened in the IUCN list of the threatened animals or organisms and threatened species rather. It is majorly, practically it acts as a non-profit and non-governmental organization. It acts as a non-governmental organization, basically, BirdLife International, placed in UK, Cambridge, and official listing authority of IUCN. These 2-3 things can be important for BirdLife International. And the thing that arises out of this report, that 40% of the birds, 11,000 bird species in the world, they have declined, right? So bird population is constantly declining, has been reported by the World's Birds Report. Facts that can be important is related to the BirdLife International out of this, right? Then the Water Bird Survey, the 12th issue in this. The Water Bird Survey is being conducted. Who has conducted this thing? Then the Water Bird Survey is conducted by the Upper Kuttanad region of Kerala. It has been conducted in Upper Kuttanad region of Kerala under the Asian Water Bird Census. Asian Water Bird Census can be important in this. What is this Asian Water Bird Census? Asian Water Bird Census is a part of the International Water Bird Census, which is created. International Water Bird Census, in the box if you look up to, the International Water Bird Census is a monitoring program operating in 143 countries. Please mark with that. These are factual things. 143 countries to collect information and number of the water birds which are present. Right. The International Water Bird Census requires a single count at each site. They are going for this. The survey has been jointly done by the Social Forestry Wing of Forest Department, Kottayam Natural Society, and Alpizza Natural History Society. That survey, that is the Asian Water Bird Survey, has been seen. And the survey says that there are 3 new species which have been spotted in India: the greater flamingo, the grey-head lopping, and the blue-cheeked bee-eater. These are certain birds which have been reported in India. These are certain reports, right? Then we have this STAPCOR 2018. STAPCOR, the name can be important. Status and Protection of the Coral Reefs 2018. STAPCOR. STAPCOR, or International Conference on Status and Protection of Coral Reefs, is an international conference held every 10 years to review the status of progress of coral reefs in all the world. And the Lakshadweep organized this STAPCOR under the Zoological Survey of India. 2018 has been taken up as the International Year for the Coral Reefs. These things can be important. And it is the 3rd International Year or the 3rd conference which has been taken up over here, STAPCOR. Practically it is helping to increase awareness, improve understanding of the critical threats, and generate an urgent action which can be generated for coral reefs. Term, why it is created, that can be the important factor about related to this. Then India to bring its first own National Environment Survey, NES. The National Environment Survey of the country would start in January, had started in January 2019. It would be started from 24 states and 3 union territories, right? It would be a grid-based approach or grid measuring 9 by 9 kilometers to collect comprehensive data on environmental parameters like air, water, soil quality, these things you can mark. What all would be taken under National Environment Survey? Air, water quality, emission inventory, solid hazards and the e-waste, flora, fauna, water bodies and wetlands. All these would be covered under the National Environment Survey of Government of India. Next is the Environment Protection Index of 2018. Three things again in this. Who publishes this Environment Protection Index? Environment Protection Index has been published by two universities, that is, one is Yale and second one is the Columbia. Two things, please mark with that, the Yale University and the Columbia University, that can be a fact important in this. It is also supported by World Economic Forum, that is the Environment Performance Index. This Environment Performing Index looks up to various factors which are associated to the quality of environmental factors, then quality or the standard of life with that particular environmental condition, the problems which are being faced, all these things, they are being constantly assessed under this. In 2018, the India has been ranked as a country which is below all the major countries, and it has been ranked 177 of the 180 countries under the Environment Performance Index, and it has been stated that this decrease in the Environment Performance Index is because of constantly increasing pollution load with the air, soil and water factors, which is constantly decreasing the quality of life associated to environment, right? So it has seen, or if we look up to, this index is prepared every 2 years, that is Environment Performance Index. Last time it was prepared in 2016, India was 141 of 180 countries. Now it is 177. That means the load of pollutant is increasing, the practices are not cleaner. Despite initiatives taken up for cleaner practices, there are much more initiatives which are required constantly by the Government of India. And much amount of the problem is seen with the northern India, the amount of particulates which are constantly increasing. Because of the climatic variability, those particulates are reaching up to the far distances, that is up to Bihar boundaries also, that Uttar Pradesh is influenced, the northern Madhya Pradesh is influenced, Rajasthan is influenced. So a larger area is influenced because of the much amount of particulate matter which is produced in northern part of the country, which can be attributed to stubble burning, which can be attributed to particulates produced by automobiles, which can be attributed to biomass burning, which can be attributed to the energy development in all these areas. So cleaner practices are required. That's why the performance of environment for India has decreased, right? So facts, organizations which are forming the Environment Performance Index, Yale University and the Columbia University, forms every 2 years. Last time it was 2016. Now it is in 2018. India is ranked 177 of the 180 countries. Last time it was 141 in the rank. All these things, right? Facts can be important. Then the Environment Impact Assessment, just a simple issue, go through with this. Then the Asia Environment Enforcement Award. The Asia Environment Enforcement Award 2018 has been given to Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. The Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, which functions with 5 other organizations including Interpol and other wildlife conservation organizations, helps to reduce the crime related with the wildlife or the trade related, also helps in trade related with trade related to the endangered species, right? That is with CITES also, right? It works with CITES, Interpol and all these organizations. That is Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, an international organization which helps to reduce the crime related with the wildlife or the endangered species also, right? And this award has been given to the Asia Enforcement Award, which has been given to Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, is been given for the innovations that it has taken up in reducing the crime related to the wildlife in major areas, specifically in Southeast Asia and other regions, associated regions. It has done a phenomenal work. That is, the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau has done a phenomenal work in reducing the wildlife crime. For that, it has been awarded as the Asia Environment Enforcement Award 2018. Then environmental refugee has taken up as a term. Environmental refugee as a term is something which is associated with the displacement associated to climate change. if there is climate change, or there would be a variability of the climate change, there would be problems associated to climate change. People will face loss, people will face damage, people will face reduction in agriculture, people will face drought-like conditions. If all these, or submergence of the land, anything if appears, people will start to displace. So political refugees or governmental refugees or war-based refugees has been taken up initially, but what about the environmental refugees? That is taken up as a concern. So the term can be important. What is meant by environmental refugees? The displacement of the human population seen because of the loss and damage appearing because of climate change are the environmental refugees which have been spoken up. And the World Bank group has created a kind of this particular report on the environmental refugees, and it stated that the environmental refugees have started to appear now in the globe, and this would be a constant frequency that could be seen. Right. Next thing is the World Water Development Report. The World Water Development Report, the one which is initiated by the United Nations World Water Development Agencies, specifically World Water Forum, right? And two, three things are important in this. The global demand for water has increased sixfold in the last 100 years. The water resources are constantly depleting, right? The third thing associated to this report is that we are not going for reuse of the water. That has been major problem. 80% of the wastewater which is being produced is left like that, untreated, is not being reclaimed. That is also one particular problem. The underground resources are depleting. A critical tendency of near 65% loss of the underground water resources has been seen in major countries, and some countries are facing a severe state where 80 to 85% of the underground water is now gone. The groundwater recharge is not seen. That has been taken up as the major thing associated to this particular report. The facts can be important to this is when the World Water Day is being celebrated, that is 19th March, right, as the World Water Day by the World Water Forum. Rather, the 22nd March, not the 19th March, is the World Water Day. And there are certain suggestions which have been created under this report that how to improve upon the water resources. All these things we have already taken a concern on that. Next thing is a report related to the status of the trace and the toxic metals in the Indian rivers. This report has been submitted by the Central Water Commission. The agency can be important. And it has said that nearly 42 rivers in India, they are polluted, and majorly they are polluted by heavier metals like chromium, copper, nickel, lead and iron. So again, we were discussing about that arsenic pollution and all that. So heavy metal pollution in the Indian rivers can be taken up as an issue which is being assessed currently by Central Water Commission. Then the role of Central Water Commission. Central Water Commission functions under Ministry of Water Resources, right? The major role of Central Water Commission is to go for assessment of the water quality in the major water resources or major water reserves, understand the nature of the pollution, understand the nature of the pollutant also, and to create warnings related to increase in contamination in the water resources is taken up, right? And it has published in 2018, it has published a report. So now this year, if we expect related to 2-3 issues that we have seen, arsenic also, uranium also, this report also, if we look up to this, then pollutants which are there in water, they can be certain areas which can be the important areas also, for the basic questions that can be asked. Then an international conference was held in 2019 related to in February 2019 related to the dam safety. And under this, the Central Water Commission, organized by Central Water Commission, that you can mark, under the Ministry of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Regeneration, in collaboration with the Odisha Water Resources Department and the World Bank. Three parties, World Bank, CWC, that is Central Water Commission, and the Government of Odisha. They have taken this conference for maintaining the stability of the dams. Rather than this particular conference, one thing which is important, that is the DRIP initiative. DRIP initiative of Central Water Commission can be important, that is Dams Rehabilitation and Improvement Project. that is concerned with World Bank to increase the safety of the dams, or to improve the standards of the dam, or to come up with certain other issues where the hazards associated with dams can be reduced. That may be associated to silting, that may be associated to aging of the dams, that may be associated to the overall health of the dam and dam based structure. For that, the DRIP initiative has been taken up. So DRIP initiative of Central Water Commission under Ministry of River Resources or the water resources has been taken up, right? That can be important. That may be an important thing out of it. Next, the Hindu Kush Himalayan Assessment Report. The Hindu Kush Himalayan Assessment Report has been taken up by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, it acts as a non-governmental organization which helps to assess the state of the alpine glaciers all across the globe. And it is said the Hindu Kush, which starts from Afghanistan up to the Indian stretches or the middle Himalayan ranges, it is constantly facing a verge of ablation or breakdown, and the major problem associated to this is the increase of temperature. It is expected that if the increase in temperature is nearly 2 degrees centigrade, or even if it is 1.5 degrees centigrade, the overall hydrological cycle of these Himalayas, that would be changed. That would lead towards breakdown or ablation or recede of the glaciers permanently in these areas. So earlier it was expected that the glacier was breaking down from the lower Himalayas or the lesser Himalayas, which is in the Indian plate also. Now the middle Himalayas are also constantly getting recede. That creates a particular problem associated to the overall stability of the Himalayan ecosystem, and specifically to those countries which are associated with the Himalayan ecosystem, right? Apart from this, the Hindu Kush Himalayas, which is important for, which is an important range of the glacier related to the overall health of 13 major rivers in the Indian and the associated regions. That may be important for Ganges, Indus, Yangtze, Brahmaputra, etc., all across in this region. So if Hindu Kush is disturbed, the overall health of the rivers would also be disturbed. That is taken up with this particular issue, that is the Hindu Kush Himalayan report. Then the e-waste generation. First fact in this can be important, the e-waste day, which is being celebrated on 13th of October. E-waste, currently if we look up to, India is facing problem related to e-waste. The fourth and the fifth largest generator of the e-waste is India in the globe. It changes, it keeps on flanking on its position. Currently it is the fifth largest in the world, post US, China, Japan and Germany. India is the fifth largest in the e-waste production. The major problem that is being seen currently with the e-waste is with the telecommunication devices, or with those devices which are single person use devices, single person use electronic devices, or one person use devices are one of the major problem currently. If we look up to 70% or more of the e-waste currently is generated because of the telecommunication devices, and majority of it are those devices which are smartphones, computer monitors, computer associated goods or components which are either used for a single person utility, or they are those which are dedicated devices for a particular person. And constantly the amount of waste generated because of these type of the devices is increasing, or the load of it is also increasing in the globe. That has been seen currently in the country also. The fourth point into this issue, if we look up to, the Global E-Waste Monitor 2017, which is published by the United Nations University, estimated that India generates 2 million metric tons, right? Globally, if we look up to, then 50 million metric tons of it has been generated, and of which only 20% has been recycled. 80% is left like that, right? So the reuse recycling ability has to increase, has to come up with this. Although India has taken up the new e-waste development, new e-waste management rules in 2016, under which extended producer responsibility has been brought down. Extended producer responsibility is an initiative under the principle of care and principle of equity also, that says that if the waste is generated by something, then the waste mitigation must also be generated by the same person. For that, it can take a cost from the consumer. So under extended producer responsibility, number one, the responsibility of the e-waste removal is with the manufacturer. Second thing, a closed market development can be seen where manufacturer, waste collectors, vendors, distributors, rack pickers, bag pickers, local governments and state governments, they can create a market-based strategy where the electronic goods can be brought back to the manufacturer only to be removed, or a user access fee can be charged for that also, or a manufacturer or the manufacturer can take an initial charge added to the price of an electrical good or appliance or electronic good and appliance initially only, so that it has that amount of money given by the consumer, so that it can create all these strategies required for removal of the electronic goods or the e-waste material. Right. This has been taken up in 2016 e-waste rules also by Government of India. Currently, central government, state governments, all of them they are, and the local governments, they are the party for removal of it. All these things have been taken up, but though initiatives have been taken up, the problem that can appear for India is that increasing renewable energy development would increase the amount of electronic goods that would be used in the Indian market, or the e-waste which is produced in the Indian market would also increase. That could be one particular problem. The second problem associated to this, if the single person use or one person use devices, they are increasing. Mobile phones, they are increasing majorly in India also, and mobile phones, they are coming from the manufactured in some other countries. Sometimes the manufacturers do not take the responsibility of it for the cheaper mobile phones. Now liability is being imposed by the e-waste management and handling rules also for taking liability of all the electronic goods which are being produced. But despite that, if we are only recycling only 20% of it and rest of it is being dumped over there, then problems are too many. So we have to improve upon recycle, reuse tendencies of electronic goods and materials. Then only the state can improve, right? That has been stated currently. Facts that can come up: e-waste day, 13th October. The computer equipment account for 70% of the e-waste material which is generated. India is 5th amongst the e-waste generators in the globe. All these things. Then there is the 3R forum. Again, a factual thing, a 3R forum, which is an initiative taken up for reuse, reduce and recycle policy, which is to be taken up. It was launched in 2009 in Tokyo, and a conference was held in 2018 April in Madhya Pradesh, majorly operated by Ministry of Housing and Housing Affairs, Japan's Environment Ministry, and United Nations Center for Regional Developments. UNCRD helps in creating regional policies for improving the state of environment also. Right. This has been taken up. Facts: intermunicipal partnership and cooperation has been taken up. Technological options for this has been taken up, and domestic and international financing options have been taken up. Then number 25 in this, the International Renewable Energy Agency, it has released a roadmap for global energy transformation by 2050. Right, International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, similar name के 2-3 organizations हैं. एक है IRENA, Renewable Energy Association. Then we have the Indian Renewable Energy Authority also, IREA. Right, then we have the International Atomic Energy Association also, IAEA. Right, ये similar name के 2-3 organizations हैं, इससे confuse ना हो. Okay, IRENA has said that there must be a target that must be taken up for keeping the global warming below 2 degrees centigrade, and for that the important areas has to be taken up. Right, facts are there in this. IRENA identifies 6 policy areas to be achieved. Number 1, tapping into synergies between energy efficiency and renewable energy. Second, developing increasing the share of renewable power. Third, electrifying and transport and heating sectors have to be taken up. Fourth, support systems. Fifth, aligning socio-economic structures, and the sixth one is the transition cost. These 6 things have been taken up under this. Just go through with the facts of Global Commission on Geopolitics of Energy Transformation, which is under this, and the facts of International Renewable Energy Agency with the booklet also. And then the India is pitching up with the International Year of Millets. We are trying to pitch up millets as the futuristic fuel, futuristic food, not the fuel, right? Fuel for human body. Okay, food like sorghum, barley, millets, ragi, etc., or other type of the materials like foxtail millet, porso millet, vineyard millet, kodo millet, etc. These are those coarse grains which have been traditionally eaten in India, and they have an ability to be drought resistant. When they have an ability to be drought resistant, so they can be pushed into agricultural system in being a crop resilient or climate resilient cropping pattern also, right? So to bring up that, India is pitching up with this. In 2018 we had the National Year of the Millet. Now we are trying to put up 2019 as the International Year of Millet, right? So that is with this particular issue. So all these reports, important policies this time. The first one in this, the initiative which is taken up as Parivesh. Parivesh, or proactive and responsive facilitation by interactive, virtuous and the environmental single window hub. Basically, it has been created as a single window web-based initiative for environment impact assessment or the environment impact clearances for the medium and the large scale initiatives which are to be taken up. Initially, under the environment impact assessment, much amount of the time was spent in filing up of the papers and arranging the papers only. Parivesh would act as one initiative which will help to reduce the amount of time which is spent in environmental clearances. That would also help to reduce the hurdles which are there in environment impact assessment also, right? So improves environment impact assessment. Also, indirectly, this can also help in improving the ease of doing business. The ease of doing business or improving the, because the ease of doing business was somewhere down the track, hurdled by the environmental clearances, or the initiatives or the large scale initiatives were hurdled by the environmental initiative, or large scale infra projects were also hurdled by this. Now Parivesh can help in improving the state. That is the basic thing associated to this. This can help in taking clearance from the Ministry of Environment, Forest, Wildlife, CRZ clearances also, central, state and the district level authorities, all of these, right, that you can mark. Then the next draft national policy, or the national policy on forest, or the National Forest Policy 2018. Under the National Forest Policy 2018, we have taken initiatives that for the first time the forest utility has been taken up aside and forest conservation has been taken up as the main principle. In the earlier forest policy, the initial forest policy was to utilize forest. Second one was to conserve forest and utilize forest. Now the third policy is directly for forest conservation, so that we can increase the carbon sinks, right, for which the new policy is being created. The major problems that we can see with this particular policy, or the major issues that have came down with this particular policy, is the adjustment or the community forestation which has been brought down. This policy has also brought down community forestation. Now, under the joint forest management also, we have discussed earlier also, the social forestry initiatives have been taken up, and under this, community reserves or community forest areas have already been created. Now, this policy is trying to bring up community forest again. That means the intermittent forest can be created. Now see, under the forest policies or under the forestation initiatives can be taken up under the initiatives of Ministry of Environment and Forest, Climate Change, under the initiatives of the agencies, or the conservation of forest or the wildlife goes through with the Wildlife Conservation and Protection Act, or under the environmental initiatives we can go for forestation. Apart from this, compensatory forestation is done by CAMPA, all these things. But now under this particular policies, all those agencies which may not be forest conservation agencies, they may be given rights directly for afforestation and protection of the forest areas. Now agencies, they may be governmental agencies like Ministry of Railways, Ministry of Road Affairs. They do not have a direct regulation to directly participate or to directly create any particular initiative for forestation or interfere with the forestation initiative. Now, like for example, we have taken up green highways or other initiatives, the forestation corridors for the railways. If we take up all these things, now aside the highways or in the highways land, if there is a forestation, who would claim it? Who would claim it? Who would manage it? Highway Authority. Under which rule? Under which rule? Is it Wildlife Conservation and Protection Act? If there is a deforestation in the country, or if there is a restricted forest area and there is a deforestation, and then we can impose penalties according to Wildlife Conservation and Protection Act, right? Now we see that the nature of the forest in the country is dense, very dense forest, then mid-range forest, and much amount of it would be open forest. Do we have much amount of the land to increase the forestation? No. We have to increase the forestation at 33% of the total geographical area. We are already forested, right? Nearly 24% of the area is already forested. Now we have agriculture also, we have urban area needs also, we have rural area needs also. And the scarcity of the forest in the country is not as compared to the other countries where degradation has been higher, or the land use and land use change is not that severe in the country. Though there has been degradation, but degradation of it can be near to 6 to 7% of the forest land, which can be reclaimed. तो हम कहाँ पहुंचेंगे 24 से 31%. अब इसको अगर इंक्रीज करके 30 से 40% पे भी ले जाना होगा. So we have to create new areas where forest can come up, and these new areas of forest would be beside roads, beside railways, in the urban areas, near the urban clusters. Now there is a deforestation beside road. Who would claim it? Because that is a forestation done by Ministry of Roads or Ministry of Railways. Now who claims that? For that, the community forest rights have been created. Community forest rights would be if open forest is being created, then the rights can be given to those organizations under this draft policy, to those organizations which are coming up with this, right? But this will challenge already present this will challenge the rights of the joint forest management community forest, right? So we have, this has created a complete new initiative where if the open forest, if they are managed by communities, or if they are managed by any other agency else than the Ministry of Forest or else than the Ministry of Environment and Forest, they can be managed, protected, and then penalties, later penalties can also be created. For that, the National Forest Policy of 2018 can be important, right? Rest of the issues are increasing the forest, increasing the carbon sink,
increasing the utility of the forest, all these things have been taken up. But currently, community resource management and a criteria of community resource management has been brought down under this national forest policy. For that, it is important. So the facts that can come up in this, the major highlights, if you look up to, then the second point in this, it aims to bring minimum 1/3 of the India's total geographical area under forest cover. The third point into this, the draft policy document processes, the public-private partnership models for undertaking afforestation and reforestation activities. Apart from this, the document purpose is the creation of community forest management mission for the community resource management under forest rights also. Apart from this, while the role of forest as a climate change mitigation factor has been recognized, the draft NSP is a vague in issue of forest rights for forest dwellers, though it has not suggested things about forest dwellers community which are still pending. Under the land adjustment rights bill also, under the forest policy also, under the forest initiatives, the actual adjustment of the land associated with the forest dwellers or the natives, that is still pending, that is still under problems, right? We have categorized natives as those which are living for 75 years in any particular area or 3 generations in any particular area, but how their rights would be adjusted is still under doubts. So this policy has not been still is under criticism or has been under criticism for this thing also, right? That it is not speaking about forest rights. Now it is high time that we must speak about forest right. Declare forest right, finish it up, and now start forestation post that. Because then land diversion, land reconversion for reforestation in the degraded land would be a problem. And constantly shifting cultivation is also creating a problem, constantly, if this forest right is not being created. So at least development, create a development plan, create a forest development plan, create a forest policy, adjust the land, go for reforestation or go for development, all of this, it must be planned in a proper way. That is lagging for this. Then the Niti Aayog initiatives calls for the clear policy on shifting cultivation. That is termed as the mission for shifting cultivation. It is said that there are multiple reasons for shifting cultivation. Those reasons must be taken care of. One is the community protection. Second one is the practice of the cultivation if there is a tradition of cultivation, that must be reduced, right? And grassroots initiatives must be taken up by those states where, or in those states where the wandering communities are much more higher and deforestation is being seen, or the clearing up of the forest or the near forest region is being seen for cultivation, that must be taken up. So the fact of it can be important. Much recently an initiative has been taken up by Niti Aayog, that is for reducing the shifting cultivation. Then the Compensatory Afforestation Act 2016. The Compensatory Afforestation Act 2016 has created majorly 2 major agencies, rather 3 major agencies. One is the National Compensatory Afforestation Fund, second one is the State Compensatory Afforestation Fund, and third one is CAMPA, right? Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Protection Authority or Agency. The National Compensatory Afforestation Fund will hold all the funds associated to any kind of the disputed compensatory afforestation. Otherwise, for compensatory afforestation now, what is compensatory afforestation? The afforestation which has been created in the terms of the human activity or the human impacts, or we can say the developmental project. If there is a developmental project, against that development project, if there is forest cleaning or forest clearing, then for that compensatory afforestation must be practiced, right? So for that compensatory afforestation fund can be held with the state compensatory afforestation fund, which is 90% of the fund is with the state fund, 10% of it goes to the national fund for the management of the complete fund also and for proper channeling of these funds also, right? Currently, CAMPA also act over here. CAMPA was an ad hoc agency initially under this bill, and CAMPA has taken the funds from all those corporate initiatives which have been taken up in the much recent time, which are associated to afforestation. It has raised nearly 42,000 crore rupees currently, and that is to be utilized in different states and union territories for compensatory afforestation. So initiatives have been taken up under this, and there are certain highlights, or there are certain committees which have been created. Specifically in this issue, the last point under the analysis, that is the Kanchan Chopra Committee. Kanchan Chopra Committee has recommended that the share of the compensatory afforestation must be given to the forest dwelling communities also. This fund or this bill has not taken account of that. So if there is loss of forest because of development, there would be loss of social, cultural and the economic values of the forest dwelling communities. That share must be given to communities. If you are projecting a forest in new area, that does not mean the problems of the forest dwellers would be gone. That was stated earlier with the Kanchan Chopra Committee. So for this, the name of this committee can be factually important. That has not been taken up, for which it has been criticized also. Then the Ganga Vriksharopan Abhiyan. Ganga Vriksharopan Abhiyan is initiative taken under National Mission for Clean Ganga, which has been taken up to initiate afforestation. Right. Major things that we can mark over here is being started as to go for afforestation in the 5 major states: Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal, where the State Forest Department is nodal agency. Please mark that thing. State Forest Department is nodal agency. The district Ganga committees will help to strengthen the program. Then the divisional forest officer DFO has been designated at the district level nodal officer, and the chief forest conservator will help in organizing the events at the state level. These are certain facts out of it. The major target is to go for afforestation around or near Ganga patches. Next is the I Haryali app, which is targeted to increase the green cover in Punjab. I Haryali initiated in Punjab to increase the green cover. Then scheme for protection of exotic Neela Kurinji plants. Neela Kurinji plants are specific type of the plants which are grown in every 7 to 12 years in Nilgiris, and Nilgiris would get their name from Neela Kurinji. The plan has been created to conserve this thing in the Shola forest of the Western Ghats, which is constantly facing a threat of extinction because of the exotic species, right? So, or because of the foreign species. That's why Neela Kurinji is facing a problem. That's why it was introduced. Then a scheme to promote in situ in the management of the crop residue. The scheme has been taken up because of problems associated to burning up of the crop residue or stubble burning. The major initiative is to be taken up with Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and parts of Madhya Pradesh. Rajasthan are also to be brought under this, because the crop residue has been burnt majorly in this. The major initiative which are to be taken up is to improve upon the farmland machineries, and a financial aid can be given under this scheme for the farmland machineries, so that machines which can help in harvesting or reduction of the crop stubble, they can be brought down into agricultural system in these areas and solutions can be created. Currently, if we look up to the major problems associated to Punjab and Haryana, is that under the initiatives of the Green Revolution, majority of the farmers, they are taking 3 crops in an year in Punjab and Haryana, and hence they are left with little amount of the time between the crops. So they do not prefer to go for manual removal of the crop waste material, rather they prefer to burn it up, right? First thing. The second problem with Punjab and Haryana is also related to stubble, is that government does not has a cost beared for the market of the stubble. The buyback of the stubble was not seen in Punjab and Haryana. That was also responsible for stubble burning. The third major problem, the utility of the stubble was not seen in Punjab and Haryana. Right? Specifically with the paddy stubble, that was also responsible. The fourth problem, the commercial utility of certain machines. There were not designated or specific machines, rather the machines which were used, these were machines which could have sliced the plants or the paddy plants at a much higher length from the ground. So much amount of the stubble was left. All of these are the major problems. Apart from this initiative, other initiatives which have been taken up, that is farmland machinery would be given, financial aid would be given. Apart from this, The buyback of the paddy stubble is also been taken up. The utility of the paddy stubble is also generated, where it can be used to take as a breeder material for the crossbred cows also. It is also used in waste to energy initiatives now, the crop stubble. It is also used in conversion of the waste towards generation of ethanol or ethanol associated substances. For that, this crop stubble is also being utilized. So the utility of the crop stubble is started. The market pricing of the crop stubble is also started. Plus, a blanket ban is generated in Punjab, Haryana and the associated region for the burning of the crop stubble. Apart from this, social initiatives have been taken up for awareness related to the hazards associated with burning up of the crop stubble. The major concern is also being raised by the in between the farmers that burning of crop stubble does not adds on to fertility, rather it reduces fertility. All these things or all these initiatives have been taken up. Apart from this, that is the in situ management of the crop residue. Then the 10th one, that is task force on biomass management. This task force has been taken up by initiatives of Niti Aayog and CII, that is the Clean Air Better Life initiative. And for this, burning up of the biomass or containment of the biomass or removal of or reduction in any practice associated with burning of the biomass has been taken care of, right? For which a biomass management task force or major management initiatives have been taken up, which helps to reduce the burning of crop residues, provide financial support, utilize crop in bioethanol, etc. All these things that we have discussed right now, that has also been taken up over here, right? So it is an initiative of Niti Aayog and the CII. That may be important thing into this, right? Clean fuel initiatives have also been taken up over here, where bringing up the CNG or CBG also, the gas based power stations are also, or power generation is to be initiated, right? Clean fuel and also the clean transport in the city has been taken up as certain initiatives, where clean air and better life initiative has been taken up, right? Apart from this, to clean up the air in the National Capital Territory, National Clean Air Program that we have discussed earlier, yesterday also, then the dust mitigation strategy, warning systems, the pollution warning systems, NACI, air monitoring systems, all of these, these are certain initiatives. Then Vayu is also initiative that we have discussed yesterday, the air cleanup strategy with the NEERI, right? All these are the initiatives which are being taken up as the clean air initiatives currently. Then the National Clean Air Program, it is a holistic or an umbrella program which will bring upon 17 major initiatives under this. The 17 major initiatives under this would be: number 1, to create ambient air quality standards; second, ambient air quality standard monitoring also; then to foster NACI, bring upon real-time monitoring of the air quality not only in Delhi NCR or the 13 major areas, but to increase its ambit near to 36 or 40 cities. Then bring upon initiatives for understanding the type of pollutants in 100 non-attained cities also, is also one initiative taken up under National Clean Air Initiative or the program. Then designing strategies for dust mitigation, the dust mitigation strategies under this program only. Then there are short-term initiatives which are being taken up, like GRAP is taken up for NCR, where removal of the particulate matter is to be directed currently, right? GRAP for Delhi and NCR. All these programs have been started under National Clean Air Initiative or the National Clean Air Program, which directly helps to cut down pollutant or at least monitor the pollutant and reduce the sources which are associated. Apart from this, in this program, how it is different now, the technological initiatives are to be taken up immediately. Technological consortium or a technological task force is created under this Clean Air Program. Initiatives are also being taken up for a joint technological management between different agencies, so that if there is pollution, there must be a technology immediately available for reduction of that particular pollutant, or there must be a short-term or long-term technology for monitoring and reduction of the pollutant. That has been taken up currently under the National Clean Air Program. Then the Clean Air Ring, Clean Air India Ring Initiative. The Clean Air India Ring Initiative is an initiative which has been taken up under the India-Dutch startup link. India-Dutch Startup Link is an initiative which is being taken up by the major companies in Dutch or the major Dutch companies to initiate startups which can be important for innovations in environmental technology, right? Majority of it is being taken up by Shell, one of the major company. We are running short of time, I know, but quickly we can look up to more important things now. The 13th one is the S-Track mobile application. The S-Track is under Ministry of Forest, Ministry of Power. The main points we can mark now. The Ministry of Power, which is directed towards tracing up of the fly ash. Wherever fly ash is available, that may be tracked over the S-Track. That helps in increasing the utility of the ashes or the fly ash in the country. Then the South Asian Nitrogen Hub. The South Asian Nitrogen Hub is an initiative which has been taken up between the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology and 50 other organizations. This is targeted majorly for improving upon the nitrogen fixation or nitrogen availability with the soil resources. India is one of the major partner, and India is the only country in Southeast Asia which has gone for the complete nitrogen assessment in the country, right? That you can look up to. For nitrogen assessment, utility of the nitrogen fixation, this initiative has been taken up, that is Nitrogen Hub. Then scheme for biomass based cogeneration project. The biomass based cogeneration project is now being started with all those industries which are developing much amount of the baggies, using this sugarcane using this biomass cogeneration. The sugarcane baggies, the resultant or the product of the sugar industries, this baggies can be utilized in two ways. Number one, it can be combusted and the heat output of it can be used for electricity generation and for the thermal utilities for boilers. When both these things go together in tandem, that becomes cogeneration under initiatives taken up by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE, waste to energy initiatives. Two things that has been taken up. With baggies or sugarcane baggies, we can generate electricity which can be an on-grid electricity. Apart from this, off-grid electricity initiatives have also been taken up. The off-grid electricity generation would be from or for this off-grid electricity generation, the aids can be provided to sugar industries by MNRE with a small scale project 25 lakhs per kilowatt hour of the electricity, or with large scale project 50 lakh up to 50 lakh per kilowatt hour of the electricity produced using baggies. Can be certain initiatives taken up by MNRE. Apart from this, MNRE is also, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is also utilizing this baggies based cogeneration in the on-grid power generation, where if we look up to a total capacity, the fact that you can look up to a total capacity of 9.54 gigawatt of the grid connected biopower has been installed in the country as of October 2018 against the target of 10 gigawatt biopower by 2022. This includes 8.73 gigawatt from baggies and 0.68 gigawatt from the non-baggies, right? Other sources, waste or the solid waste material burnt, right? So this is the basic initiative. Then the national policy on biofuel, the initiative which is being taken up, which grades three major generations of the biofuel. The first generation, which is bioethanol and biodiesel from Jatropha. The second generation, advanced biofuels, ethanol, municipal solid waste, etc. based fuel that can be utilized. The third generation is bio-CNG and biodiesel from algae, that is taken up in the third generation of the biofuel. right? These are three major generations which have been taken up. This also comes up with, or this particular policy helps in bringing up the use of biofuel in the country. It creates a market-based strategy where the production and the sale of the output of the biofuel production can be seen in the market. The major oil companies of the country or the oil producing companies of the countries, they have been inducted with the sale, purchase or for creation of a market-based strategy for biofuels in the country. That has also been taken up, right? And National Biofuel Coordination Committee is also being created currently as a spearhead committee that helps to introduce biofuel in the country. Basically, biofuel, if we look up to large generation of the fuels which can be generated either from biological source, also from biomass, they can be taken up as biofuel. But for the purpose of policy making, biofuels are restricted as generation 1, biodiesel, bioethanol, generation 2, waste to energy, municipal solid waste or ethanol generated out of it, generation 3, bio-CNG, biogas, etc., bio-CNG, and the algae-based biodiesel production. These are three major generations, right? Apart from this, biopower can be generated from baggies-based, that is burning of above the waste material or the baggies in different ways with sugarcane industries, off-grid, on-grid. This initiative is also taken up as the biopower initiative, right? Apart from the national biofuel policy. Then waste to wealth is again the same initiative that we have discussed. Development of the biogas, Govardhan, that we have discussed, policy to promote city compost, generate energy out of it. Then the national Red Plus strategy, Red Plus or Red Plus Plus. These are three major initiatives. Red has been initiated under the Convention to Combat Desertification, where the initiatives have been taken up to conserve the forest areas in the densely forested areas of the Africa, where the Papua New Guinea or the least developed countries initiatives have been taken up. Then Red Plus Center with UNFCCC, where forestation, conservation of the forest, diversion of the land use changes, all of it has been taken up as a strategy. And now India has taken up a Red Plus strategy. National Red Plus strategy has been created by the Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, Dehradun. A strategy has been created that helps to improve upon the forestation in the country. So Red Plus basics में आपने पढ़ा होगा इसको भी पहले हम लोगों ने पढ़ा है basic classes में भी. Just go through with that. That can be one thing. Then the ensemble prediction system. It is a new forecast model which is generated by the Indian Meteorological Department, which is generated, which can help in developing weather forecasting 10 days in advance. That is a 10 days probabilistic forecast of weather that has been generated. Right. Fact can be important and why it is generated. The ensemble prediction system. Then the solar geoengineering, this we have discussed, all the projects we have discussed of geoengineering. Then Maharashtra's project on climate change resilient agriculture. Climate change resilient agriculture or different activities or a large scale project has been taken up, though we have discussed climate change agriculture or climate change resilience also with our basics. The major things that can be taken up is practicing water conservation, water harvesting, then practicing drip irrigation, practicing or bringing upon drought resistant crops directly into the croplands, introducing those practices which may be more climate or eco-friendly, introducing organic farming or the tools of organic farming and reducing the amount of temperature near the forest lands also by planting trees all around. Apart from that, introducing organic fertilizers and organic pesticides to reduce the chemical load also. All of these has been taken up as a long-term strategy. So it takes about three things. Number one, scale up climate resilient technologies, reduce the risk of climate related crops, enhance farmers' income, mainstream climate resilient agricultural agenda, and the improvement and to improve the capacity of the farmer producer organization. All of these that has been taken up as a long-term strategy by Maharashtra. Then certain important things Post this, the initiative to reduce carbon emission from farming. All these, there is a list of policies which have been taken up. National Food Security Mission, the Green Revolution in the Eastern India, Soil Health Card, Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, organic farming, right? Mission Organic for Value Chain Development for the East, Rain-Fed Area Development, Agroforestry, Bamboo Mission, all these missions, they have been created to reduce carbon emissions from farming. Then the Water Informatics Center. Water Informatics Center has been created, and it is being created by the India Water Resource Information System. It helps in planning and management of the water resources, the Water Resource Information System, and under this Water Resource Information System, a National Water Informatics Center has been created recently that will help in creating a repository of all the data related to the national water resources. That can be important. So, WRIS, the basic functioning of it and the utility of it. Then the Ganga Gram project, an initiative taken under National Mission on Clean Ganga. The Ganga Gram project is directly targeted to improve upon the state of sanitation, public health, cleanliness in all the villages which are near the Ganga banks. Specifically, specific projects which are being taken up under this is the concept of zero liquid discharge. That means these villages will not discharge any liquid outputs directly into Ganga, first thing. Second, open defecation free. These villages have been made open defecation free. Right, then formation of the sewer lines in these villages, open sewer lines have been covered also, sanitation drives in these villages, awareness drives in these villages, and then forestation drives in these villages have been taken up. Conservation of the water resources, cleanliness, public health, afforestation are the major agendas which have been taken up under this Ganga Gram project. Then the Deep Ocean Mission. The Deep Ocean Mission is targeted currently for extraction of the polymetallic nodules. These polymetallic nodules can be useful in extraction of the rare earth metals also. This has been started by the National Oceanographic Research Institute, and majorly India is trying to participate with other global agencies, and for this, the things that can come up under this initiative of Ministry of Earth Sciences, National Institute of Oceanography is the nodal agency performing this. What are polymetallic nodules? These are nodules of many metals clubbed together which can be traced underwater in the deep sea. Exploration of it is being done up to 100 nautical miles, right, which can be the areas which can come under the hydrological boundaries of the country, right. Then the Clean Sea campaign, the Blue Flag certification, just go through with this. Then we have this 3D printed artificial reef. The 3D printed artificial reef has been created and has been put into summer islands of Maldives, where we could have created 3D printable substances out of using substances like calcium carbonate or alginate, etc. Using these substances, we could have printed a reef-like structure with a 3D printer, and then we have inducted that 3D printable reef directly into the blue lagoons of summer islands, right, in Maldives. That's why it was into news. Then the India Tiger Census. India Tiger Census conducted by NTCA. Now Nepal and Bangladesh will also join, so that the complete tiger in this particular area can be marked, right. Then the African countries, they have launched a joint initiative to save 4 carnivores. What are these 4 carnivores? That is African wild dog, cheetah, leopard and lion. These are 4 major carnivores for which a joint initiative is being taken up in Africa. Just a fact can be important for this. Then Prakriti program, that is initiated by Indian Council of Forestry Research. The Prakriti program is an initiative which is being taken up for awareness related to nature and climate protection for the school going children's, right. It is an initiative between Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti, and the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, all of them, they have taken this initiative, Prakriti. Then the Himalayan Research Fellowship Scheme, then One Planet, One City Challenge of WWF, One Planet, One City Challenge of WWF has been taken up as the Earth Hour City Challenge also. It is a 3-year challenge which is being created by WWF for generating those methods which would be more sustainable methods against climate change, right? So different cities, they participate in this. 3 cities have participated in this, Panji, Pune and Rajkot, right? Rather it is done for 2 years, right? One city, one planet, one city challenge, and sustainable practices are being taken from this thing, from this initiative of WWF. So the cities participating, Panji, Pune and Rajkot, and initiated by the World Wide Fund for Nature, Worldwide Fund, right? Wildlife Fund rather. Next is the Smart Food Executive Council. Just go through with the facts of that also. Then resource conservation and management, important things that we can take up or important points into this. The National Biogas and Manure Management Program, that you can go through. The facts are the same that we have discussed, that biogas production, it's going for cylinder formation of it, then utilization of the city compost, biogas production of the Govardhan, etc. initiatives have been taken up. Then community forest resource, we have discussed that thing, joint forest management, community forestation in this. Then this Brazzaville Declaration, that can be important term, Brazzaville Declaration, that is targeted towards better management, conservation of the world's largest tropical wetland, that is in the Kuwait central region of the Congo Basin. For that, Brazzaville Declaration has been created, which has been jointly signed by Democratic Republic of Congo and Indonesia, right? So to conserve peatland, we have discussed that thing. Peatland can be a problem. If peatland are deteriorated, then it can add up to carbon. And to conserve those peatlands, we have the Brazzaville Declaration. The term can be important. Then the Nek Nampur, we have discussed the floating bioreactor technologies that we have seen in this Nek Nampur. Then Niti Aayog has urged for the plan to save springs in Himalaya conservation. 7th one is important, that is Bungru. Bungru is a water conservation strategy that can be taken up, or water harvesting strategy that can be taken up. It can be a small water harvester which can remain functional for 15 days in an year and conserve enough amount of the water, or harvest or store enough amount of the water that can be utilizable for agricultural purposes for upcoming 7 to 8 months, right? That is Bungru. That is one initiative which has been taken up and is a technology demonstrated by a Geneva-based firm, Firmenich, right? 7th. 10 days, 10 to 20 days, it can be utilizable. It can harvest water between 10 to 20 days, right? For 7 months it can be utilizable. That is Bungru. Then Google has also started initiatives for water resource management. That initiative has been taken up between Water Resource CWC and Google for utilizing artificial intelligence in understanding the nature of water resources in the country. Then Composite Water Management Index. Composite Water Management Index, who has released this thing? Niti Aayog has released this thing. Composite Water Management Index. And it has been said that India is facing a water scarcity, and by 2030 the state of water resources in India would be worsened. It is said that 75% of the households are not getting proper drinking water. 84% of households do not have piped drinking water also, right? 21 cities, specifically Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, etc., they are running out of groundwater and they would be lost by 2020. That has also been taken up. The Composite Water Management Index, the facts of it, that can be taken up. It will evaluate different states on the basis of 9 broad sectors, that is 28 different indicators covering groundwater, restoration of the water bodies, irrigation, farm practices, drinking water policy and governance. All these things, they can be facts of this Composite Water Management Index. That can be important. Then 7, the South Asia Wildlife Enforcement Network. 7 has been introduced for last 2-3 years. It is an enforcement network which is created amongst the Southeast Asia countries, specifically 8 countries into this: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. And the basic target of it is to reduce any kind of the trade associated with the illegal trade associated with the endangered species, specifically to reduce the wildlife crime in these areas. The major initiatives that has been taken up: it has documented many illegal trade and poaching activities. It helps to strengthen the institutes associated to combat wildlife crimes also. All these initiatives, they have been taken up with 7. So 7 is there for reducing, just like CITES is there, 7 is for the local area, coordination amongst these countries to reduce the trade in the endangered species. Right. Then the National Wildlife Generic Resource Bank. Wildlife Generic Resource Bank is an initiative of CCMB, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology in Hyderabad, and Laboratory of Conservation of Endangered Species in Hyderabad. What they are trying to do is, it would create a first genetic resource bank of different types of the endangered species, or specifically majorly the it would be a genetic material would be stored for posterity and further uses for conservation of endangered and protected animals, right? So that can be taken up. That would become a National Wildlife Generic Resource Bank. Then Tiger Standards, CA and TS partnership, all these things there we have discussed the basics of this. The zero budget natural farming. Zero budget natural farming is being taken up as an initiative in Andhra Pradesh. Zero budget national farming is something where the net cost of growing and harvesting plants in any particular area is zero, right? That means the amount of initiative which has been put into that, in the same way the crop or that initiative which has been taken up is able to rear that crop or harvest that amount of the crop. So the net cost is zero. An initiative which is being taken up by Andhra Pradesh. So it becomes net budget natural farming, utilizes natural resources. It has taken up Navdhyana concept. Navdhyana concept, 9 major factors where initiatives can be taken up to improve upon traditional farming practices, right? That becomes net budget zero farming. Then the State Energy Efficiency Preparedness Index of 2018, which is released by Bureau of Energy Efficiency, an alliance of energy efficient economy. And the objective is to assess the state policies, whether they are able to go for improved energy efficiency or not, and then to meet the rising energy demands of India. That is the State Energy Efficiency Preparedness Index of 2018. Then the Solar City Program of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. The major objective of the Solar City Program is to enable the urban local governments to create a master or the large scale program, or the city government can be improved or the local government can be improved in such a way that a large scale plan or a program can be created for investing or bringing up to solar energy in these areas, which would become Solar City, right? So these are also certain policies which have been taken up. Next thing, with disaster management, I'll just go through with important things that just go through with this, with the booklet, with this content also. First thing that can be important this year is the National Disaster Risk Index. Just go through with this. And the multi-hazard early warning systems that has been taken up for regional areas, that can be one thing. And the tsunami early warning systems of India. These 3 can be important under disaster management. And in miscellaneous, the prevention of cruelty to animals. That is the Karnataka amendment to this. And the Indian Ocean Research Vessel, that is Sagar Nidhi. These 2 can be important things into this. Just go with the readings of this booklet, right? We have tried to cover majority of the topics, right? 1% का chance फिर भी रह जाता है. Okay, that is a deficit. But try to bring it up. Try and focus on the issues which are more of the underlying issues of the current affairs. That is more important for PT, right? Direct factual questions, or the nature of factual questions, how they are created, we have discussed that thing. How the underlying facts or underlying things are being asked in different issues are also taken up, right? But one thing that is for sure in current affairs, that repetitively I have been saying also, try to focus on that. Try and focus on a single source, revise as much as you can, and practice number of questions that you can find related to current affairs. That would be important, right? Going for multiple sources would not help you out, because you will keep on reading the same thing in different dimensions only. Better it would be keep on revising the things that you have assessed or that you have assimilated with the notes, this thing, that thing, right? Keep one source, keep on revising. That would be better for you. And in current affairs, majorly students try to target 100%, right? That 20% rare fact also we try to target. First you try to achieve 80% facts. Then if you have time, then I'm not saying that you must not go for that. If you have time, go for that extra 20% or go for that extra 1 mile in current affairs. If you don't have time, if you are not able to contain, then that 80% in current affairs is also sufficient. Don't get panicked about, I have not done current affairs, because the nature, yes, this is for sure that the question paper is current oriented. UPSC question paper is current oriented, but the way of asking the current questions is different. One are the questions which are asked with the basic, one type of the questions are asked with the direct current affairs based questions, right? The assessment of this, it may vary, 10 to 15 to 17 questions directly from current affairs. Every year, that may be, you may be lucky enough for not having more than 4 questions in current affairs, or you may be unlucky enough for having 17 questions in current affairs. But whatever may be the case, try and target 80%, because your objective is not to get 200 out of 200 in your GS paper. Your objective is to get 120, 130, 135. That is enough for the GS paper. You would be there in your selective, you would be there in the list of selected students, right? So try and target that, okay? Because these areas, current affairs and all, you are more panicked about that. Don't be panicked about it. Revise and be confident on the issues you have read, right? Chalo, thank you.